First, they try and cancel you.
It's not that they necessarily want to throw you under the bus. They're just so self-interested that the benefit to them will outweigh any damage it will do to you.
Then they put you in jail.
The worst thing this government can legally do to me is just put me back where they took me out from. I'm not nervous about that anymore. Most people will know this is a setup.
And if that doesn't work, they kill you.
I don't even get massages because I'm paranoid of being assassinated.
Tristan Tate, welcome to the Jack Neel Podcast.
Glad to be here.
Hopefully it never gets to that point, but do you think they would kill you or just Andrew?
Oh, it would definitely be both of us. Because the problem is, any influence he has would immediately be passed on to me the moment he died. You know, I don't like to dive too much into my various legal problems, but they've really shown their hand. And they've really shown the fact that they're definitely trying to just persecute both of us. Because it seems every crime Andrew's committed, I've committed the same crime in the same country at the same time. Oh, did Andrew evade taxes in England 9 years ago? No. Andrew and Tristan both did. We worked different jobs back then. But we're both implicated in this. So every single attack comes on both of us. Every single attack. Next time they charge Andrew with something, they'll charge me with exactly the same crime. I mean, I left America when I was 8 years old. Who knows? Maybe I sexually assaulted someone when I was 7. Good. If they find that and drag that up, Andrew would have coincidentally done something at exactly the same time. It's always both of us. And we always travel together, so we make a slightly easier target, minus my armed security who follow us everywhere. So yeah, they definitely try and get both of us. Because there's no point. There's no point in trying to shut one of us up unless you get the other one.
Tristan, you've made a profound impact on many people, including myself.
Thank you.
Your mission, the way you carry yourself, have deeply influenced my beliefs and many others. With that in mind, I'd like to explore what truly matters to you when it comes to your mission and how it differs from your brother's, if it does.
Sure.
Can you elaborate on what your mission is and why it's important to you?
My mission is to prevent the erosion of the culture of humanity that built the world. When I'm a history nerd myself, when I look at the attitudes and the mindsets of all the people who've built the modern world, every single great idea was established by a great man. And all of these people had a very similar way of working and a very similar mindset, irrespective of where in the world they were born and the time period they were born. I think that new think, as me and Andrew brand it, is a new way of doing things. It's a new untested way of trying to run the culture of the world. And what have we accomplished? How old are you?
23, yeah.
Greatest accomplishment, human accomplishment in your lifetime. Go. Tell me one.
Greatest accomplishment.
Human. Any human accomplishment. Greatest one. Because it seems that we've stopped doing good things, doesn't it? I mean, in my opinion, first man to climb Mount Everest, men who landed on the moon. There were various human accomplishments, whether you buy it or not, that were made that humans strive for, and anybody could tell you from the older generations during their time period what the greatest things humanity did was. It seems now we're stuck in a rut where nothing great is happening, culture's just slowly getting eroded, currency is getting eroded, there's a new war every once in a while, new people die, new scandals happen, but nothing is actually being accomplished or being done. So I don't think that new think has proven itself to be a viable way of progressing the global culture. So I'm just trying to take that back a little bit. If I was a man living in 1931, nobody would think anything about my views was crazy or wild, or any other point in human history. Nobody would call my views wild or crazy. It's only today. So if today was overwhelmingly more successful than all the various times in the past, of course we have more up-to-date technology, but that's true in every single time period. If today was overwhelmingly better, the quality of life was better, people were better, I'd have to take a step back and analyze myself and think, am I wrong to be stuck in the past? But it seems the future doesn't have anything great for anyone to even look forward to.
Do you think AI is a great human achievement?
It's as of right now, it's a very complicated thing that's developed and technology keeps getting better. But I don't think AI is very useful to the common man who can't afford his groceries, whose children are being stabbed to death on the streets of London. I don't think AI is a great saving grace that's going to help us all unless you use it to bring in a totalitarian form of tyranny on everybody. You know, it would be a very scary police force if it was in charge of the world's security. It would be terrifying. But is that what we want? Technology so good that we can submit humans into behaving in an amicable and respectable way by fear? You know, what's AI done? It's made some cool photos. There's a photo of me and Elon Musk riding a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. But is that really that useful right now? The implications of AI in the future are going to be extraordinary. Yes, absolutely. By the time it gets good enough when they say, I mean, let's take a Boeing 747 airliner. Dozens of men sat around for decades designing this plane, the most efficient way to run this wire, to put the fuel tanks, and they sit there with a pen and paper, a blue sheet, and a white chalk, and they drew up this design. When AI is good enough to say, I want a plane more efficient than the Boeing 747 design we want, and it just comes up with blueprints, that's when it's going to be truly groundbreaking. But as of right now, I don't see any major breakthroughs in humanity that have made me more hopeful for the future of humanity, if that makes sense.
So your brother says that he's been enjoying boredom. He says that fun is haram and having less fun is more fun. So Andrew, it hasn't impacted as much, but how has getting off house arrest affected your day-to-day?
It made me furious. Off house arrest. Then when they expanded my territory so I can leave Bucharest and I could travel the whole country, everyone always asks me, oh, doesn't that feel good? No, it doesn't. Let's say I cut off both your arms and both your legs, and 3 months later I give you one of your legs back, and people start waving microphones in your face. Hey, aren't you happy to have a leg? You'd be like, well, no, because I've never done anything wrong, and you never should have cut off all my limbs in the first place. And then you've got a leg and an arm left. They reattach one somehow. Hey, aren't you happy? You got an arm again. You'd be like, this is fucking bullshit what you're doing to me. And this is wrong what you're doing to me. So no, I don't give a shit that you give me an arm back. Until this whole thing is dismissed. And more importantly, the people who perpetrated it have faced justice harsher than me. I will not be happy. So I don't feel good. You know, I left my house and everyone's waving microphones in my face. Aren't you happy that you can go to restaurants again? I should never have had my liberty deprived of me in any way, ever, because I've lived my whole life without committing any crimes, ever. So it doesn't fill me with joy, no. It's just another level of insult. And what's extra insulting about it is that they think that this is somehow a favor, or I should be happy about it. No, I'm not happy about any of it.
What do you miss most?
Not having to explain myself to people. I like not having to explain myself to people. I like waking up and thinking, you know what, I'm going to go to South Korea. Why? Who's going to ask me why? Nobody. I could just go. Now when I need to go to various places, it's, oh, hi, police officer. Can I please not sign on this piece of paper on this day so I can please go to this town? It's like, why am I explaining myself to these people? That's the upsetting part about it. So I miss most having agency over my own life. And I should have agency over my own life. But I don't. And I think that's what I'm going to enjoy getting back. Even though I should never have lost it in the first place. The sense of just being able to do whatever I like. Because that's how a man in my position, having never committed a crime, should be living. That's what I'm going to be happy when I do get it back. But then my quest for justice starts. If they throw the case out, or if I'm found not guilty, that's not justice. Justice is when everybody else pays for what they did. That's when I get justice. And that may take me 1 year. It may take me 20. But I'm very petty and I've got a lot of time. So everyone is going to face justice.
So regarding the current legal case, a Florida judge ruled that 2 of the victims in your case were lying about the allegations.
Yeah.
I saw on one of your shows that you can, for some reason, speak about some things that Andrew can't. Why is that? Like,
the charges against me and Andrew, it's the same case, but the charges against me and Andrew are different. And yeah, you know, it's not even very exciting for me. The fact that, and we will talk about the legal case, I've shared it a million times. The mainstream media have never picked up on it. But when the police took the phones of my 2 false accusers, they found messages in their phones. Yeah, we're going to lie to the police. Oh, let's wear sunglasses and pretend we're crying so we look more victimized. We're going to win Oscars for our lies to the Romanian authorities. We're going to get our own Netflix series after this. That was found on day 1. I'm in jail and they already know this. Like, it was already established. And every judge I've seen, I'm like, why don't you just read their confession and let me go? So the fact that now the Florida judge is saying, looks like these girls were lying. I'm like, well, that's what I've been saying for 2 years, you know? So everything's moving very slowly, but it is moving in the right direction. And that's ironclad proof taken off their phones, which is in the Romanian investigation files. They didn't include it in the indictment. Yeah. Indictments are made to make you look guilty. So, oh yeah, they definitely human trafficked these girls. All these theories about why I do it is all in the indictment. Andrew's things he said online, all in the indictment. Their confessions for lying somehow didn't make it in there, which is crazy. So Romania can play whatever games it likes. That's my point about finding real justice. I have American lawyers who will find these false accusers, first of all, civilly liable. And then once they're proved civilly liable, hopefully I can find them criminally liable for doing this and have them serve some jail time. That would be very nice. Because I think false accusations are really cruel in the way that I may not give a shit because I'm built different and I'm rich and I can handle jail. But there are a lot of men put through the same accusations I would have been put through, having to deal with what I went through, who would have killed themselves, whose families would have fallen apart, whose businesses would have fallen apart. And it really diminishes from the seriousness of real allegations. You know, if there was a man, I'll take you, for example. Let's pretend, I don't know what you say online, but let's pretend you're saying things that I know they don't like. Yeah. You're saying things against funding foreign wars and you're saying things against, I don't know, the COVID vaccines or whatever. If you were saying those things and you were actually a rapist and a girl says you raped her, I'd be like, well, that's bullshit. It's a false accusation. Even if it were true, because this is what they do to people who say the wrong things. Does that make sense? So it takes away from the seriousness of the real crimes committed. The fact that the judges in Florida are doing their part is fine. There's going to be a lot of judges making a lot of judgments over the next 10 to 15 years against a lot of people, some of them in this country and some of them outside, and I will slowly destroy all of these people. Whether they set me up and send me to jail or not, I will slowly destroy all of these people just to clear my name and because it will be funny. Because they won't be able to handle it like I can handle it, you know? And they deserve it, frankly, because they're the real criminals.
Yeah. Where's the case currently at?
Here's the wild thing. So I was falsely accused 2.5 years ago. I've been under a form of arrest for 700 days now. And we are not even at the stage when a decision has been made, a final decision has been made, to whether or not it goes to trial. So in October, the appeal court judges could say, yeah, you know what, this does look like crap. Nah, fuck it, no trial. 2 years of arrest, and they could just throw it away. Are they going to try and hit me with some new charges on some new bullshit? Maybe, who knows? But I'm ready for it. You set them up, I'll knock them down, you know? But we're not even at the stage where they decide if there will be a trial, let alone a trial actually instigating and the years of time that will take. So it's just trying to drain me of my energy and my life force and my resources and my influence. And quite frankly, it's done the opposite. So thank you very much to my false accusers and the corrupt Romanian prosecutor who decided to do this to me. Thank you.
I'll get into this a bit more later, but Tristan, why don't you give a fuck? Like, you seem so apathetic about it, you know? Like, you don't care. You're like, put me in jail.
How would giving a fuck help me?
Fair.
How would it assist my current situation? It wouldn't. So imagine you're on a cruise liner and you're sailing from Liverpool to New York, right? You know the story of the Titanic. You're not that young. And everyone's like, oh, there are icebergs in the ocean. Cool. Well, I'm going to put on my tuxedo and I'm going to go to dinner. You know, if we hit one, we hit one. That's the situation I feel like I'm in right now. I'm sitting on the HMS Titanic ordering a luxurious dinner because if they decide to send me to jail, they fucking decide to send me to jail. If this all goes away, it all goes away. It's going to end one way or another. And I'm not going to be in jail for the rest of my life. I'm going to do 5 years, 6 years on this bullshit. I'll still be rich. I'll still be 40. I'll still be out. I'll still have time with my kids. Everything's going to be okay eventually. So yeah, caring, I don't think really would benefit my situation at all. So I've decided not to. I don't care at all. And they really fucked up. Because if I had never been to jail, this cloud hanging over my head of, oh, maybe you'll go to jail, maybe you won't. They go out sometimes if you don't light them often enough.
Yeah.
This cloud hanging over my head might bother me. And I might think, jail, what's that like? Is that going to be bad? I've experienced jail. I've been baptized by the fire already. The worst thing this government can legally do to me is just put me back where they took me out from. And I'm not nervous about that anymore. I'm not nervous about the jail itself. I'm not nervous about the effects on my business or my family or my influence. Most people will know this is a setup because probably by the time Romania decides it's time to put Tristan in jail and he's guilty, I would have won in the American courts. And that news will be everywhere. And everyone will know who my false accusers were and what they said and how they bragged about planning it. And then if Romania decides to put me in jail, good. Then Romania looks stupid. It doesn't affect me. So I truly don't care because I'm not at the stage in my life where jail is going to massively interrupt anything. I'm no longer on my way to the top. I'm not on my ascent to the top. I've reached the top. So I'm going to go to jail as a rich man, come out as a rich man. Fucking do it, you know? Do it. You told the whole world I'm a human trafficker. Put me in jail. I don't care. So, yeah, why should I care?
Let's transition a bit to women. I watched an interview between you and Billy Redhorse a while back.
So this is 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Long time ago. I will say as a disclaimer that I've been talking on the internet for a very long time.
Yeah.
Probably about 10 years or so. So I was maybe 11. I was about 25 when I started talking on the internet. And a 25-year-old man's views of women and relationships in life are very different to a 36-year-old man's views. So it's very easy to pick up clips of me saying all sorts of outlandish bullshit, because I've said loads of it, as a young, brash 25-year-old who thinks he's the shit. And as an older, smarter 36-year-old, there are lots of things that Tristan Tate of the past has said that I wouldn't agree with today. So that's the disclaimer before you ask me any questions.
I don't think anything in here is non-congruent with your current beliefs. It's all pretty good, but
let's go. I'm ready.
What's the importance of being a gentleman?
Well, you know, there are lots of different answers I can give to this. But the importance of being a gentleman in today's age of lawfare and these attacks that can be sent to destroy your life is, I didn't quite understand this my whole life when I've always treated people with respect and been polite. But 200 and something women who I've been with in one way or another, friends of mine, lovers of mine, ex-girlfriends of mine, have been dragged into police cells and interviewed for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. And the only goal of the interview is to get them to say that in some way they're a victim of mine. Did he ever hit you? Did he ever lock you in a house? Did he ever constrict your movements? Did he ever... And none of them, because they will call me after the interview and say, these idiots are trying to say that I'm a victim of yours. And I told them where to get lost. These are women who I haven't had contact with, sometimes in 6, 7, 8 years. Haven't seen them. Haven't heard their name. Their messages have never popped up on my phone. And they're sitting there with police officers saying, no, Tristan's a good dude. What the fuck are you doing this for? So if you ever get caught up in something like I'm caught up in, I mean, there are videos of celebrities, saying no names, videos of them beating the shit out of women in hotel lobbies. And there's like, oh, well, they can't prosecute this guy because it was too long ago. I'm like, well, that's convenient for him. He's obviously in the club that I'm not in.
Yeah.
But that kind of toxic behavior towards women and people in general will always come back one way or another to bite you. And I've always believed that. Way before I ever would have believed that I'd be arrested and put in jail with all my ex-girlfriends interviewed about me. Way before I ever believed that, I knew that behaving in a derogatory way or an impolite way or a trashy way or a toxic way towards people was just never going to pay off in the long run. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's cute. I like to treat the women who are in my life with respect and the men, everyone I know. So I'm a gentleman in all aspects because I feel it's very important, because what goes around does eventually come around. And I'm now reaping the benefits of the seeds I sowed in the past by just generally not being a horrible person to anyone. I've had girlfriends tell the police, well, he wasn't a very good boyfriend, cheated on me loads of times, but is that a crime? We can do, put him in jail? Like, yeah, he cheated on me, but, you know, did he ever hit me or treat me bad? Or, you know, no, he didn't. He was nice.
It's interesting how they can omit all the nice things that have probably been said.
Oh, no, all those hundreds of interviews? Oh, yeah, that's all omitted.
Yeah.
Because the indictment is just the worst stuff they could find to make you look like a criminal. They've been through all my hard drives. I mean, all these famous celebrities and these people especially work for the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC. You know, every time their hard drives get analyzed, what's found? Child porn, the worst shit. And I've now been through that extreme level of investigation. And, you know, some of the text messages I've sent, maybe I could have phrased them differently, referring to girls in a joking way as, you know, you're my bitch or you're my slave. This is normal shit that people say to each other, you know? However, when you see it in a police indictment, you're like, oh, for fuck's fuck's sake. I don't actually own slaves, guys. This is clearly a joke. But that's the worst stuff they could possibly find on me. And I'm like, well, that's a testament, because I feel like most people, especially my detractors, especially the people who are porn addicts and, all these people who hate on Tristan Tate and Andrew Tate, I'd love to go through their hard drives. I'd love it if federal agencies went through their hard drives and their, internet history and their conversations and see exactly what came up, because they were hoping they'd find something. They knew these two girls were lying. That wasn't the point. The reason they're running with it now is because those two girls' lies is all they've got. They've analyzed me in every single way since, and hoped to God they'd find drugs in my house, hoped to God they'd find some illegal, illicit pornography on my phone. Never found, never existed.
I want to talk more about women, but I'm interested in the case. So you speak a bit of Romanian, right?
Yeah.
Is it rudimentary? Like, what's your level of Romanian?
I mean, I speak Romanian like Borat speaks English, is the best example I give.
Gotcha.
I butcher it. They understand basically what I'm saying, and I can understand them.
When you were getting details of the case and court documents and such, of course you're completely honest with Andrew, but were there any times that you maybe softened the blow of how bad it would be? Like you got the Romanian and you kind of...
Well, no, I never had to soften the blow. And people copy and paste this stuff in the indictment to me all the time. Keep in mind, the indictment is written by an aggressive, corrupt prosecutor who wants me in jail. This is not a joke. This is not a joke. This is from my indictment. There are 2 paragraphs saying the Tate brothers conspired to lure women to a party, to pick potential victims, to try to exploit them somehow and pimp them out. And so it's stuff I've never done. And there's this whole explanation of this is why they throw parties. And here's a photo of them at a party with the girls. And here's our evidence. It's a WhatsApp conversation. Hey, Andrew, I'm throwing a party tonight. You coming? Yeah, I'll be home. Cool. How many girls did you invite? 12, 13. That's it. So they write this fictional story and they illustrate it with a picture of me at a party and that little WhatsApp conversation, which I'm sure you guys have all had the exact same conversation, right? But in the hands of a prosecutor. So I've never had to soften the blow because it's just a load of crap. And it's not about what they say that I've done. It's what evidence do you have to prove I've done these things? And the answer is always almost zero or misinterpreted, heavily edited, by the way, WhatsApp conversations. That's all they've got.
On women, what's the most aggressive thing a woman's done to gain your attention?
Jesus. I mean, I have a girl who follows me everywhere I go.
Andrew said she's the best.
even today.
Yeah.
So anywhere I am in the city, if she follows the car spotter pages on Instagram and gets word that I'm anywhere, she'll come and try and, follow me. And she's a very attractive woman. So this is the fucked up thing. Like, my problem is getting rid of them. I don't understand how. I mean, you can literally type the word child molester or human trafficker or rapist into Google image search and look at all the images of the people who commit these crimes. I doubt you have those problems.
No.
These guys have problems that me and you don't have. So yeah, I have women aggressively follow me. I have women show up at my house. I was once dating a girl from London. I'm not going to say her name, but it was a while back. And a stalker of mine shows up at my house at 3 a.m. And let's say my current girlfriend's name was Susan. It's a fake name. But I get a call from my security guard saying, Susan's at the door. She won't leave. She's ringing the doorbell. I'm like, Susan, she lives in London. What the fuck? Like, it's 3 a.m. I fucking get worried. I walk downstairs. I look at my security monitors, and there's my stalker standing outside. So she found out the name of my current girlfriend and tried to use the name to get into my house.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm trying to keep these women out of my house. What universe am I trying to keep them in, The only thing I've ever forced a woman to do in my house is to get out. I said that to the prosecutor's face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, women are crazy, and it makes me empathize for women who have male stalkers because I can only imagine how scary that would be.
Yeah.
Andrew finds it hilarious, as you know, this girl who follows me around. And there was one who followed me around in the past. And it's not intimidating. It is funny. But
How long has she been around for?
the one who's following me now, she's been following me for 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Every time she would come outside the jail, scream my name. Every time I go to court, she's there. And there's no reasoning with her. She's just part of the scenery now.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go, I expect to see her. My security guards all know who she is, and you just keep her away from me.
Is there a specific type of woman you seem to attract?
No, I wouldn't say there's a specific type. There's a specific type that maybe I'll go for. But there's not a specific type of woman who... Actually, that's a lie. My super fans online the ones who write me fan fictions about me kidnapping them, like these obsessed women who are obsessed with the idea of me, women who I've never met, are all kind of American, mainly, lonely, 35 to 45, married or divorced. Like, I get really crazy fan mail. And it always starts with something like, oh, Tristan, I know you're innocent and I know you're not a bad guy. But if you were into, tying women up and keeping them in your house, well, I'd happily come over. But I'm like, nice try, officer. But anyway, I get a lot of crazy women attracted to me. I think people with very dull marriages, just as being, I guess, a celebrity, because I'm kind of famous now, the kind of woman who obsesses over me online isn't the type of woman that I typically like to be with, no.
Has gaining this sort of status and fame made you realize how many women are disloyal? This is something I spoke with Waller about a little bit.
Getting status and fame, because you can always, and I've noticed this with the things Andrew and I say, you're not doing it, but they're often misconstrued to be somehow a negative statement against women. So every time I'm about to make one, I like to make the point that it's not just women.
Very fair.
Having money, having status, having fame definitely shows you how disloyal people are. So that's an example that I can apply to some women who I've met in my life, and it's an example I can apply to probably more men who I've met in my life. So I think that's just part of the package. But it's very good to go through hard things and to get sent to jail and to have all these attacks against you, because then you understand and realize who actually has your back, who's standing by your side. And you mentioned Justin Waller. Justin Waller's awesome, man. When he was in America, I got out of jail. He goes, "I'm coming to see you, boys." I say, "You sure? What if they arrest you and stuff?" He goes, "I ain't fucking scared of jail." He's over at my house drinking whiskey with me. He doesn't give a shit, because he's one of those guys who's always got my back. So yeah, it's people are disloyal, men and women, and less disloyal. I'd use the term self-interested. Self-interested more than disloyal, because they're not looking to stab you in the back. They're looking to further whatever agendas they have, whether it be get famous, make money. So it's not that they necessarily want to throw you under the bus. They're just so self-interested that the benefit to them will outweigh any damage it will do to you in their own minds.
Do men peak between the ages of 35 and 45?
In some ways, that's cope for older dudes who are fat and lonely, pretending, LARPing in this magical universe that they're at peak age. Men peak for different reasons at certain times. I would say that I'm in my peak. I'm in my peak financially, my mindset, my intellect, everything there is about being a man within my soul and my brain and my heart is all peaked now. And I've improved with age in that way. But I've certainly got a lot less hair. When I was 27, I could probably beat myself up now at 27 years old, even though I was much lighter. I was a professional kickboxer. I was in, let's say, better shape, fewer injuries. So you fall apart in some ways and you come together in others.
On your hair, why aren't you bald? Because Andrew talks about this, that his dad said like having hair was...
I don't look good with a bald head. Yeah. I've also had a difficult life. I have a bunch of scars down the side of my head from various car crashes, etc. So the moment I shave my head, I look like a thug, and I prefer not to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to fight the battle against losing my hair for the rest of my life. But no, I think that a lot of men like me who grew up broke, who put the work in their entire life, can get to 35, 37, 36 I am now, probably older, and feel like, yes, now I'm in my peak. I get that. But never let that be an excuse for the men who are just coping. The men who, I don't know, were former Marines or they were in better shape or what, and they've just got married to some ugly bitch, had a few kids, they're broke, working some dead-end job. And they're like, yeah, I've peaked. I'm 40 years old now. I think that it's also a get-out-of-jail-free card for a lot of people who don't want to continue doing the work. I have to train twice as hard now to be in the shape I used to train half as hard to be in back in the past. So you peak in some ways, and you'll notice that as you get older. Maybe I'll sit with you when you're my age, and you'll have a lot less hair.
Yeah.
But
Hopefully
so it depends what you mean peak. And women, and I guess a lot of women find older men attractive. A lot of women, even 20, 21, 22.
Yeah, do you notice you get more female attention at this age? Because you dated a very famous model here when you were at a young age.
Yeah, I was 28 back then.
Okay.
And I wasn't famous either. That was the first time I ever saw my face in a newspaper. But again, I've always been a man who tries very hard. I've always been a man who, tries his best to be as smart and as sharp and as rich and as professional as possible. Me at 28, as a man measured against who I am today, he doesn't even compare. But I still did okay for my age. So, yeah, there's different ways of peaking. It's a lot less simple than the female peak of attractiveness everyone talks about. It's a lot less simple than that, and it's a lot more complicated.
Have you ever been brutally rejected by a woman?
No, because there's no such thing as brutal rejection. Lots of women like me, lots of women don't. I've never been brutally rejected because I've never tried that hard. When I first started getting famous, back when I still had Instagram and I was platformed, Instagram DMs would get leaked. And as I said, they've been through my hard drives. I've never said anything stupid. I said to girls, hey, where you from? You want to go out sometime? No, never in a million years. And I literally just say, okay, no problem, smiley face. And then 2 years later, when I was getting famous, they'd post it. Ha ha ha, Tristan tried to sleep with me. I'm like, yeah, but I also sent that message to 500 other girls and 400 did sleep with me. So I don't really care. Yeah. So there was no such thing as a brutal rejection because I was never brutally trying. I was never trying to force someone to like me who didn't. So
I guess when you were younger, maybe.
No, still, as a man, you always have to know when to take no for an answer, Message her twice, maybe 3 times. If there's no reply, just give up, bro. It doesn't matter. I've been rejected loads of times. I've tried to speak with lots of different women, certainly in person. If I see a pretty girl and I walk up to her, she's like, no, I'm not interested. It's okay, well, have a wonderful evening. Goodbye. What could possibly be brutal about it unless I was standing there insisting again and again, oh, well, maybe you're just stuck up like some idiots do. You see them on the internet and they look like fools. And then she'll say, well, you know what? You're a fucking idiot who's balding and you got a crooked nose. They've never had to be rude to me because I know when to take the hint and to just leave. So no, there's been no brutal rejections ever.
On Heartbreak, what does Heartbreak teach you?
Heartbreak teaches you the power of understanding that in life, things will always get better if you try to make them better. I'm not going to say her name, but there were girls who I dated when you were still a baby. So let's say I was 20 years old and she was 19 years old. I was 20 years old and we broke up for whatever reasons. This particular girl got some job where she had to move to London and I was upset about it. And now she's some 35-year-old middle-aged woman with, 2 unspectacular kids and a husband who's divorced her. And I'm just like, if the heartbreak had never happened, well, I'd be that guy. I'd be with her now. I wouldn't have done all the great things that I've done. Heartbreak sucks, and you do have to deal with it. And again, know when to walk away without begging or humiliating yourself, especially in this day and age of DMs and messages being recorded and stuff. And each heartbreak, like with every bad event that happens in life, sets an important marker that you eventually look back on a longer timeline and you see the growth and the self-improvement and maybe the hypothetical scenarios that would have happened had you stayed with that person or had you not been betrayed by that person. And yeah, it serves as very important markers on a timeline. But it's only once you progress a couple years past that timeline that you could see the knowledge in it, unless you do it the wrong way and let it spiral you into down the toilet of self-destruction. In which case, then you're like, oh, well, that's when my life went completely wrong. So no, that's when you chose to give up. They're 2 very different things. But heartbreak's fantastic. I wish my heart could still be broken. That would be nice.
What made you realize a girl wasn't the one for you?
I realize now they all weren't the one. But the problem is I had to be older and smarter to get it. Yeah. When you're 19 or 20 or 21, you get your first pretty girlfriend. Oh, no, she's definitely the one. She's probably not. She might be by all means. But as you grow and evolve as a person, whether it be female company or male friends, as you grow and evolve as a person, you can look at what you knew about those people now and you just think, well, that was a lucky escape, no matter how much you idolize her at the time. I may well, when I'm 45, look at women I know today and be like, how come I didn't see that this wasn't right for me? Because at 45, I'm going to be smarter than I am today, albeit probably less hair, but I'll be smarter than I am today, and I'll see it then. Nothing ever happened to me in life besides normal girls you're hooking up with. You realize I don't need to be around this type of person. The obvious shit. If a girl takes drugs, massive red flag for me. I immediately cut people like that off. But really, it takes if you're emotionally invested in somebody, you probably, with your current mind and your current judgment, you're only 23, think that you are correct to be emotionally involved with this person. But a 35-year-old version of you would see all her flaws. So I think it comes later. But then there's obviously massive red flags that you just cut people off for. But I never get that serious with people who have those red flags. I'm never with someone 2 years and I'm like, oh, she takes cocaine all the time. Like, I either knew at the beginning and stopped talking to her, or, you know, you don't stay with someone that long before you notice glaringly obvious red flags.
What does a man learn about life from women, and what does he need to learn himself?
Well, men live for women. This is the point. Men live for women in every single way. If women didn't exist on this planet, everything about my life would be different. I'd have fast cars because I like driving them. But a lot of the things that men do, a lot of the things we say, the way you dress, lots of it is about trying to attract women, trying to impress women, and trying to have women hold you in a high regard. Because if women in general hold you in a high regard, then you, as a high-value man, have your pick of the best women on the planet. And there isn't a single red-blooded male out there in the world who doesn't like the idea of lots of different women being attracted to him. Even if he's got his wife and he's in love and it's the first girl he's ever been with and he's, I don't know, a Mormon or a Muslim or a Christian who's super involved. If you were to ask him, would you like to be unattractive to women or attractive to women just in general, he'd say attractive. Because it raises the impression people have of his wife, for example. So there's not a single man in the world who doesn't live for women in one way or another. So they are almost every lesson you learn about life and almost everything you've done wrong can somehow be reflected back into the mirror of what do women think of this and what do women see in me because of this. So almost every lesson, I guess, if you want to be philosophical about it.
Now, you've become known as the Talisman. That's how you say it? Yeah?
The Talisman.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Which basically means good luck charm.
Absolutely.
You were given the name at 17 by an African man, Luke, right?
Yeah, you've done your research.
And he worked at a sandwich shop. Why did he give you this name?
Because I was his good luck charm. I was very good at picking up women when I was out with him. I was 17, but I was living in England. 16 is the age when everyone starts going out and meeting partners, etc. I know some Americans will say, oh, did you meet an 18-year-old woman? She was a pedophile because you were 17. The age of consent in England was 16. So yes, when I was 17, I was going out trying to meet women. Of course. And yeah, I've always thought of myself as a good person to have around in every regard. So I kind of embraced the nickname. He liked the fact that when he was out with me, picking up women easier or whatever it is. But, if you wanted to get involved in a business and you gave me 1% of the business, I'd probably benefit the business much more than the 1% you gave away because I'm involved in the project. Yeah. Whether it be a business, whether you get into a fight, whether you have any kind of problem with your wife or girlfriend and you ask me, I'm always that guy who's there for people. And I think that when you have an abrasive kind of tough guy image online, people don't see that side of me as such. But there isn't a single friend of mine or my brother or anybody who I hold in high regard who can't count on me 100% in every endeavor. Yeah. So that's why I've lent into the nickname and I still keep it to this day. It was my kickboxing name for ages just because I thought it sounded pretty cool. Yeah. But even here, it's inscribed on my cigarette case right there. You can read if you read the center bar there, Tristan the Talisman Tate. So
it'd be a good time to, Travis, do you want to grab it's just in that box right there. We have a little gift for you.
Oh, thank you very much.
About the Talisman.
Beautiful.
Some good old Muay Thai shorts.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Are these the right size?
Hopefully.
2XL usually fits me, but
for Norwegian kickboxing.
Cool. All right, we'll see.
Should be good.
Hopefully they fit. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Andrews say daddy on them.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. But who's your talisman?
The obvious answer would be my brother. It's somebody who I can count on 100% in all different regards. Whether I'm in jail, whether we're doing business, whether, in every single way, I can always count on him. If I asked him to do things he didn't want to do, he'd do them because I'm going. Sometimes he's going driving when I'm busy. I'll follow him in another supercar and screw my whole day off. Just because I think, what if some idiot crashes into him? Who's going to drag him out of a burning car and lose their fingers and arms doing it? Only me. So I've got to go with him. So yeah, I can always count on Andrew.
Your bond with Andrew is evident. Was there a specific moment that solidified your relationship with your brother?
Boring answer, no. I can't think of one. We've just always been like this. And I didn't know how abnormal it was until we got famous.
Yeah.
I didn't know how unusual it was, which is mind-blowing, I think. You know, if you got a brother, why not stick together? And I always found it very normal my entire life. And a lot of my friends didn't have brothers. I've been very close to a lot of my friends for many years, even the people who are now here working with me in Romania. These are dudes I've known 20, 21 years because I stick around the same people. But I think it's that sense of old school loyalty that me and my brother have that's been extended onto my larger friend group. And nobody makes it into my friendship group unless that's someone who I know I can count on 100% too. So no, there's no real specific moment. It's just always been that way. And I can't explain why it is. I think that if you have a pair of brothers who aren't close and they aren't working together and they aren't best friends, I feel like they owe the world an explanation as to why that is.
Yeah.
I don't need to explain why I'm close to my brother. I don't think that's the right question. I'm speaking about new think here, and I'm speaking about how society's changed. You know, I feel like if you were to go back in time 100 years, I'm like, oh, you two are brothers here. Yeah, we're brothers. We work in the same, we're both cobblers. We make shoes together in the same shoe shop. Very normal. But now people look at it like it's abnormal.
Yeah, it's
like,
fascinating how much backlash you get.
Yeah,
from
why
it.
are you and Andrew so close? Why do you live together? You're both full grown men. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, this is none of your business. I like living with my brother. And if you have a brother who you detest or you're not close with, I feel like that's something that you need to explain to everybody, more so than I need to explain being friends with him. I don't get why that is such a pertinent question that everyone's curious about. And it goes to show how society is fucked because it's so unusual. It shouldn't be that way. Every brother should be like us, and it shouldn't even be a question that you find interesting, but you do because of the state of the world.
So going back to your childhood, you and your brother lived in a homeless shelter in England, right? Can you tell me about that? I haven't heard you speak about that much in my interviews.
Yeah, so we moved to the United Kingdom. We had no money, obviously. My family had no money. My father, really no fault of his own. He was fucked over by the American military. One of the reasons why I give a lot of money and time, because people say, "Oh, you always talk about the charity you do." No, I don't. No, I don't. A few of the stories on Twitter where I'll say, "Let me help this guy out," they make it into the public. But all the time behind the scenes, I'm trying to help people out, whether it be financially or just with someone to talk to. But I care a lot about veterans in the United States and veteran healthcare because my dad was screwed over by the American military. And if the VA health system wasn't so fucked up, he may well still be alive today. So,
Can you tell me about that a bit? How was he screwed over exactly?
so essentially, in 45 seconds, the way he was screwed over and the way I know he was screwed over is this. He was essentially given an honorable discharge and said, here, we think you have a personality disorder, so you're not allowed to have your security clearance. And instead of saying okay and taking the 50 grand a year, the good salary they offered him, he said, no, I'm not signing a piece of paper saying I'm crazy. Fuck you. So he fought and fought and fought, lost all the family's money by the time I was 2. So I never remember having any money. Went flat broke, went into debt, trying to get his job back in the military. And it never worked. I mean, it was this crusade he was on his whole life, and it never ever worked. And the biggest middle finger he ever got from the American military is about 4 years before he died. He said, look, 4 years before he died, me and Andrew didn't have much money. He says, you know what, guys, if I sign these papers, these honorable discharge papers, I'm back paid for all the money they owe me. So 750,000 American dollars, whatever it is, I'm back paid if I sign their papers. So he went into the VA center and said, you know what? Fuck it, I'll sign your stupid papers. They went, no, you know what, Emery, you actually think you're mentally sound. That was a mistake. Get out. So they screwed him over.
Wow.
So that's the reason my family had no money, because he was a man who did his very best. He played chess. He made some money playing chess. But I moved to England with my mother, who's British, and he stayed in the United States trying to reestablish his career. In hindsight, it didn't work. If I could go back in time, I'd say, don't chase this dragon. It's not going to work for you. But I was a kid at the time. He did the best that he did the best that he knew at the time, and he tried his best to get his career back. So yeah, when I moved to England, I was flat broke. And as I progress in wealth and power and influence and make the friends I need to and get the connections I need to, I will have my father's military record cleaned. That's on my to-do list. I will have you say that you fucked him over and you shouldn't have discharged him. Mm-hmm. Somebody is one day going to sign a paper saying that, apologizing for what they did to him. One day.
So tell me about the homeless shelter. How long were you guys in there? Was it you and Andrew? Was it your sister there?
Me, Andrew, my mother, and my sister. And it was essentially a 5-bedroom house with 2 joint kitchens. but every bedroom was independently occupied by either a homeless family or homeless people. There was no homeless individual men there because they kept the women and kids away from homeless dudes. But yeah, it was very strange. Like, you'd go to school, you'd stay over at your friend's house one weekend. He'd be like, I'll come to your house next weekend. And then my mom would have to explain to his mom, look, he can't come over. We live in this homeless shelter. But
Was this in Luton?
yeah, in Luton.
How many years were you guys in there for?
Almost 2.
2 years.
I think. Almost 2. I was aged maybe 9 to 11, something like that.
Do you have any interesting memories or experiences living in that shelter?
No, but it's one of the reasons I like to help people out.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I like to help people out as much as I can. I mean, I'm always on the GoFundMes and all these pages, just randomly dropping thousands of dollars to a bunch of different people. Because I remember when, I remember going to school specifically in the run up to Christmas, where you had this in America too, where you'd bring in cans of food and stuff for the less fortunate. And I remember doing that when I lived in the United States. And then I remember being in the homeless shelter, and Christmas would come around and these vans would show up saying, well, here's the food for the less fortunate. I was like, fuck, am I one of those people now? Like, it didn't hit as hard as I guess it would now, being as wealthy as I was. If I found myself where I was in a homeless shelter with my kids, it would be much more of a culture shock. But when you're a kid, I just moved country. My brain was all over the place. I never really adjusted to how unusual it was until I was much older. And even throughout that time, I always had my brother. We always had each other's backs. Like, it was, in hindsight, it was fine. Nothing bad happened to me. There are people who are victims of the system, people who are, let's say, who have no parents, orphans, people in less fortunate positions than I was, who end up hooked on drugs at an early age because their foster parents give it to them, sexually assaulted. There's terrible things that happen to people. And I've always not been able to feel sorry for myself, ever, because I understand and have always understood how much worse so many other people in the world have it. So the homeless shelter years, cool. Yeah, that's not ideal. It wasn't great. But there are people who are perfectly functioning normal adults right now who got over traumas far worse than I've been through. People got raped by foster parents, etc., and passed around from home to home to home. Bad shit happens to people all the time. So the homeless shelter was interesting, and I'm glad that I lived there for a while, because now when I say I come from the very bottom and I made it to the very top, I can now say very bottom. If I'd never been in the homeless shelter, not quite, So it's part of my story.
Back to school. Do you know what your GPA was in school?
You don't have a GPA in English school. I started losing interest in school at about age 14. So I was a straight A student in America. My dad had very high standards on us. I was a straight A student in what England calls junior school. And throughout high school, I was a straight A student. And in the run up to the final exams, which happened when I'm one of the younger ones in the year, should be 16. I would be about 15 and a half when I finished formal education. The last year and a half of school, quite frankly, I got bored of school, and I was taking a lot of time off, just hanging out with my friends away from school.
It wasn't challenging, or you weren't interested?
I wasn't interested. School was never challenging for me. I never found any of it challenging. Even when my absence became quite more well known, I guess, to my teachers, they were like, Tristan, why aren't you showing up at school? You're the kid who gets everything right. I was just like, So I had a couple friends I used to, hang around with, but I was also trying to make money. I was selling pirated video games. And I've said this on a podcast before. This is the only illegal business I've ever run. I would copy video game discs and music discs and sell them at school. And it's like, it's time to go to math class. I'm like, no, well, fuck math. I can make £10, So I kind of lost interest in school towards the end of it. And when school was over and I was working, making money, there was nothing I loved more than reading books and learning new things. I just found the school system boring as hell. And me and my friend, I'll say their names because fuck them. I had this female friend named Mia and this male friend named Mark. And we just used to in English it's called bunk off school or play truancy or whatever you want to call it in the United States, and just do whatever we wanted. I'd lost interest in the educational system. And maybe that's why I'm so disenfranchised with it today. Like, if I'm a straight A student, very good chess player, I played the violin, I played the guitar at a very high level back then. If you can make me lose interest in education, then what the fuck are we doing? Because kids can sit and watch movies all day. Kids can sit on TikTok for 6 hours a day. But when they're in school and they're misbehaving, they're like, oh, well, they have attention deficit disorder. No, this is just boring and we need to do better to keep people engaged.
Hmm.
And yeah, I finished school at 15 and a half years of age. I don't have any higher education than that, but I have probably close to 200 employees who have university degrees. So
Did you guys get in trouble a lot in school?
no, not really. Not really. I got caught selling my illegal CDs and stuff by teachers and stuff. That's a slap on the wrist. But I guess today, I mean, the world's getting much worse. We used to get into a few fist fights, but very normal stuff. I was never in school. I was never disrespectful to teachers. I never misbehaved in school. I was the nerd until I started doing the only thing that I shouldn't have been doing, which was taking time off school that I wasn't allowed to have. That was the only thing that I ever did wrong.
What was your favorite subject in school?
I liked the sciences, chemistry, biology. I always found that very interesting.
Not history.
Physics.
Interesting.
No. But I think it's down to the quality of teachers. It's down to the quality of teachers because I don't see, now that you ask that, because everyone knows I love reading history books and studying history. Now that you ask that, I don't remember what my history teacher's name was.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Because I remember my science teacher. I've said on another podcast, he was some Malaysian guy named Mr. Suba Singh was his name. Very interesting teacher, very engaging. Listened to everything he said. And I loved that class. Never missed it. I don't remember what my history teacher's name was. Because he must have just been so fucking dull that I thought, I'm not coming here anymore.
Yeah.
You know? Then I'll just do it after I finish school. I'll read history books all day and I'll be fascinated by it, with the point where I'm up at 5 a.m. and I have work at 7. I think, oh, fuck, I haven't slept. But actually being in school, I must have found it dull because I don't know my teacher's name.
I mean, that's the importance of things like the real world. I mean, a lot of people claim that you can find the information for free online, but I claim I've been in the real world. I've gone through some of the stuff. Like the teachers are actually interesting and engaging. And
Well-
like you edit the videos to be curated to where it's like good to watch.
Well, that's the point. And it's very easy to write slanderous, stupid attacks on my brother and I. But let's say you have a degree in business. Can I not find all that information online?
True.
If you have a degree in physics, could I not find all of that information online? Yes or no? Could I not read about how the Higgs boson particle works on Wikipedia, as opposed to studying in a lecture hall? Yes, I could. All of the information for every degree is online.
It's like,
All of them.
Why don't we just give kids
Yeah.
books?
Yeah.
Why do they even need teachers?
Exactly.
Because there's something about a good mentor that speaks well. Yeah.
Exactly. It's about the delivery of the information. So if you take just one of the campuses of the real world, say where they teach people to run like Amazon web stores, etc. Sure, you could probably find how Amazon web stores work online, but that's very different than a man who makes millions of dollars a year running Amazon web stores telling you how to do this, you know?
And you
It's
can chat with other people.
It's a
learning about the
very
same
different
thing.
delivery vehicle. In fact, I will prove to you conclusively that the real world is a fantastic product right now. Let's pretend you hate me, okay? I don't know if you do or not. You hate me. You're going to act as though you hate me for 30 seconds.
Okay.
So you hate me. I'm Tristan Tate, human trafficker, misogynist. You hate me, yes?
Yeah.
Why do you know who I am?
TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok. So the internet. I'm all over the internet. It was impossible to delete from the internet. I'm impossible to ban from the internet. So even though you hate me, I am an excellent internet marketer. I must be, right? And I know you hate me and you don't want to admit it, but Andrew is arguably the most successful internet marketer that there's ever been, correct? Well, that's wonderful. Well, inside the real world, we have a campus on internet marketing. And my team, who are behind my success, with our knowledge and our ideas, which catapulted us to arguably, with Andrew, the #1 spot in internet marketing stardom, are teaching people how to internet market. How can that possibly be a scam? Even if you hate me, you have to admit I'm a great internet marketer. Great. Well, what I know is taught inside of the real world. It's $49 a month. Hate me or not, sign up or don't. No one can, and I've sat with people who disagree with me, and they're like, okay, well, boys shouldn't want to be like you, so you shouldn't be teaching them that. I said, you could sell fucking flower arrangements online and learn what I learn and make it a successful business. How is the fact that the world's most successful internet marketer and the team that helped us achieve that are teaching people how to internet marketing as one of just the many campuses? That proves that it's a great product for $49 a month because you're learning
And
from
you're
arguably the
highly
world's best.
successful kickboxers, you know, and highly successful chess players. It's like,
Exactly,
what
yeah.
are these guys just going to teach nonsense in
Yes.
the courses? It's like they know how to do other shit.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
even if we take all that away, my haters can't, to my face, ever say, no, you're bad at internet marketing. They can't take that away from me.
Because they know who you are. Yeah.
Exactly. Because that's how they know who I am. So that's conclusive proof that it's a fantastic platform.
Was there some dumb game you and Andrew played growing up? Like some game that you guys made up? I know I had some with my friends.
That we made up? No, we used to put boxing gloves on and try and beat each other up. And we didn't know how to box. If I could watch those fights back, it was probably terrible. But me and my friends would put on boxing gloves and try and beat each other up. I guess that's our dumb game. And, dumb games in life often spiral into greater things. And from there, it was karate lessons, and it was the kickboxing gym, and then it was the successes we had in the professional realm of sports. But I don't know why we found that entertaining to do.
Yeah.
We were probably terrible. We had no teacher. Yeah. But that was our game.
It's often said a true friend is someone who sees the pain in your eyes while everyone else sees a smile. What do your brother and other close friends notice about you that the internet doesn't see?
If I have pain in my eyes, I have pain in my eyes. I don't smile through pain. You've seen the images of me coming out of jail, very, stoic face, etc.
Yeah.
But what do my friends notice about me that the world doesn't notice? I don't know. I guess that would be more of a question for them. It'd be more of a question for them because I don't want to say anything that sounds like I'm trying to kiss my own ass.
Maybe what do you notice about Andrew that the world doesn't notice?
What a wonderful person he is. Like when he's with my daughter, what a great uncle he is. What a great dad he is. People assume that, because they've read the BBC, who are, run by child molesters and have a history for making up news. They assume that he's just some horrible person who's rude to everybody. I guess I can encapsulate this in the first few seconds of when I ask anyone in this room or anyone who ever does podcasting, what was your first impression with Andrew? I would say he was smiley, gentlemanly, shook his hand. Like, he's not going to walk in and say, what the fuck you want, brokey? Like, this is there's a very different way of communicating on the internet and in real life. And I think that people totally underestimate how polite he is, how generous he is, how kind he is, and what a wonderful person he is, And I feel like that's a side of me that's, I don't want to kiss my own ass, but that's a side of me that isn't shown online as much. It's showtime, it's emergency meeting. That's really me. This isn't a fake personality. It's a side of me. It's me angry at world events discussing world policy, which is very different from me taking my daughter to the zoo. You'll never see that on the internet. What's
your favorite childhood memory, or what's a childhood memory that makes you smile when you think about it?
A childhood memory that makes me smile. That's a very difficult question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. I was smiling my whole childhood. It wasn't hard. My mother, as broke as she was, still gave us 3 square meals a day. I liked most things about my childhood. I liked going to karate lessons. I liked, boxing with my brother. I liked most things about my life. I think that the only thing I ever had in my childhood that ever detracted from my happiness was a feeling of jealousy for some of the other kids sometimes. Everyone had stuff I didn't. Whether it be even nice clothes. All my clothes were Andrew's old clothes. So besides that, Andrew has this saying, and I don't know if he covered it when he was speaking to you, but he says people miscategorize happiness. For happiness, they think you have to be elated. For me and Andrew, I'm happy right now. Everything is fine, so I'm happy. Not everything is fine, and so I'm in the middle. Why would you be in the middle when everything's fine? You should be in the middle when half the things are going fine, half the things are terrible. Everything's fine, I'm happy. So as a kid, I was very, very happy. I can only tell you because you don't actually, I'm not sure if you know this, you don't memorize pleasantries and happiness and good feelings as much as you memorize bad feelings sometimes, So I can only remember me being jealous of a bunch of other kids. But besides that, my childhood was very happy.
You memorize the things that are useful to you later.
Yes, exactly. And now I have everything and everyone's jealous of me. So I don't care what you're into. I have more of it than I certainly can get more of it than most people, especially the people who hate me. The people who hate me go to car shows and look at the new Mercedes in the window and they're not allowed to touch it. And I buy them just to see how the doors open and close. So yeah, I did have this sense of jealousy that plagued my childhood because everyone had things that I didn't. But besides that, my entire childhood was very happy. Yeah, extremely happy.
Do you disagree with Andrew, going back on the point earlier that fun is haram? Because you still do things like drink.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. Me and Andrew are different people, and we've always been different people. So I disagree with him on surprisingly a lot of things because I live with him And we have disagreements on certain topics all the time. It's never a hostile disagreement. It's never what you could call an argument. But he thinks things that I don't think. I will always enjoy sitting around with my friends, talking about whatever topics we like, politics, world issues, drinking a glass of whiskey. I will always enjoy that. I'm certainly over, because there was a time, and we all know this, I'm not betraying Andrew's trust, because you've all seen my vlog, which has been going on for 10 years on and off. There was times when Andrew loved going to nightclubs, and Andrew loved, partying and hanging around with new women and all this stuff. But again, we're talking about the younger man, older man dynamic. Now, he would tell his younger self, stay out the clubs and do this instead. I'm sure he would, but at the time, he was having a great time. And remember, Andrew's a year and a half older than me. So I find that he gets bored of things about a year and a half before I do. I'm not ever going to quit drinking, but about a year before I got bored of nightclubs, he goes, Tristan, these nightclubs, I'm just bored of this shit now. And I'm like, yeah, but what else is there to do on Friday and Saturday? Let's just go out. And for another 6-7 months, we went out. And as I approached the age he was when he first said it, I was like, fucking nightclubs suck.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't agree with him that fun is haram. But what is fun? I mean, if you knew Andrew like I did, I could have challenged him more on the question. Is getting in a $1.8 million Ferrari and driving around mountain roads fun? Yes. Does Andrew do it? Yes. Will he ever quit? No. Does he think that's haram? No. So he does have fun. But if you know him well enough, when he means the things traditional people do for fun, they are haram, and they're getting more haram. This is the problem. A nightclub 15 years ago was a much more sanitary environment than it is today. Intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, in every way. Everyone went out to try and have a good time. It was before the internet. Now it's this clout chase of who has the most money, who can I get a selfie with. Half the girls in most of the expensive nightclubs in the world, whether it be Miami, New York, LA, Dubai, are all prostitutes out there looking for business. It's become much more haram than it used to be. So he's right in some ways, but he does like to have fun.
There's an old saying, a man has two lives. One starts the day he's born, the other the day his father dies. On October 17th, 2015, your father, Emery, suffered a heart attack during a chess tournament and died at age 56. How did you handle the news, and what impact did this event have on you?
I will say that saying, you actually kind of got it wrong. It was stolen and mutated from a Japanese haiku, which was used as the title of a James Bond novel. The actual saying originally goes, you only live twice. Once when you only live twice. Once after you were born and once after you stared death in the face. And that's the action, and your father dying is very much a way to stare death in the face. But that's the original quotation. But how do you change? Again, my answer is going to be very similar to the answer I gave earlier on how you deal with heartbreak. Again, it's not a pleasant experience, but it's a marker in your life, a downturn that you feel for a very long time. That doesn't make any sense until you've lived out the time scale long enough to look at it for what it is from above. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm looking now at this timeline and I can see the things in my life that changed when my father died. Certainly my desire to have kids immediately appeared out of nowhere. So I was 28 years old. Immediately appeared out of nowhere, my desire to have kids, which I think is very important as a man. So I was living through life thinking, one day. And then you stare death in the face. You're like, ooh, this is going to happen to me one day. What the fuck am I walking around this earth childless? What if I get hit by a bus? Well, I'm going to leave my genetic legacy to just die with me. So everyone grows and changes in different ways from every negative experience, including that one, which will eventually happen to you and you and you and you. It's all going to happen to all of you if nature has its way and you don't die first, which I pray doesn't happen. It's a self-reflective event that you have to look at a few years after to understand, I think, how it really changed you. But I also can't give you the answer because I think it changes people in different ways. And again, a lot of people, it will spiral them down this toilet of self-destruction. But that was never the way that my father raised me to be. So I'm, God knows how many times richer I am now than when I was that age. I don't want to even hint to my net worth because certain government agencies are trying to steal everything I have. So, but yeah, in terms of my wealth of knowledge, my empathy, again, having children was something that changed. Yeah, it's affected me in ways that I can only now see as positive, even though the event was extremely negative. But if you're an idiot and then your dad dies and you're like, oh, I can't handle this. Well, what the fuck did you think he was going to do? Live forever? And you become a drug addict? That's your problem. So I think the answer varies from person to person. But it does take, my advice to the young guys out there who maybe just lost a parent, which is happening to probably hundreds of thousands of people who will listen to this podcast over the next few years. Just, keep trying to win and wait a while, and then you'll see. And if you look back and you think it's changed you for the negative, then that should be another wake-up call to do something better.
Was that the hardest thing you think you and Andrew have experienced?
Yeah. What could be harder? Jail? Come on.
Yeah. So you interviewed Billy Red Horse a few years back,
Yeah.
and you discovered, I think this information is correct, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So your father was buried at the same grave site that was near the same church Billy went to regularly?
Yes, he has been to the church my father's buried at, which is spectacular because the number of graves in that church must number less than 100, 150. It's a tiny little church in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, he'd actually been there, Mr. Red Horse. And that was a very cool thing to, that was a very cool thing, a cool connection to have made. But yeah, we went to church just down the road from there.
You asked him about coincidences. Do you believe in signs and the magic of the world?
Not in the conventional way. I think that the world is magic in lots of ways. So when I see things like that, I don't think, what outside magical force made this happen? I just think, isn't life magical? And you have to distinguish those two various things, because I'm not the kind of person who sees a certain type of bird fly over a certain type of building and thinks, oh, well, no, bad luck's coming. Bad things happen, good things happen. Some of them are astronomically, the odds of them happening and the coincidence you see in them is wild. But I just think that the world's a very magical place, and we're here for a long time. We're here for 70 plus years, hopefully. And these kind of things, do hit you occasionally, and you're like, wow, isn't that insane? And I just think the world's a magical place, and the world's very special, and we're all very lucky to be here.
Something he claimed that he was maybe not able to move energy, but he'd experienced people moving energy within him. Do you believe in moving energy?
It depends in which way you mean. What I would say is, and this is a cop-out answer,
Yeah.
and I don't care, is that I understand the things I know very well. And I can give you a Tristan Tate answer, which I'll give you next. But the Billy Red Horse answer would be something along the lines of, my answer to him would be, he is much older than me. He has seen a lot of things I have not seen. He has spoken to a lot of different types of people who I have not spoken to. He's been to many places where I haven't been. So who am I to question anything he believes in? And then I can give you a boring Tristan Tate answer to say that if I got out my phone and sent you $1 million in Bitcoin right now onto your phone, has energy not just moved? Okay, sure. Yeah, it's only ones and zeros on the blockchain. Sure. But you're going to go back to wherever you're from, and things are going to change. New buildings are going to appear, new vehicles are going to appear. New people may be born if I were to do this. So is that not a shift in energy in and of itself?
Yeah. I guess more in the practical sense. So I had someone give me a massage or something, and they did like some energy work on me. I'm a very practical person. And I was like, what are you doing? And they're like, energy work. And like, I felt some tingling or something. And then I had another massage therapist do it. And I asked her after, I was like, did you happen to do energy work on me? And she's like, yes, that's good that you like recognize that. But have you never had any experiences like that?
I have to say no.
Gotcha.
I have to say no.
It's all very
when
woo-woo, yeah.
Yeah, I have to say no when I really think about it.
Yeah.
But that's not to say I'm not the authority on this.
Yeah.
At all. I don't even get massages because I'm paranoid of being assassinated. So how would I know?
Yeah. Very privileged to get massages.
Yeah.
So July 15th, 2012, on your birthday, Emery tweeted, "Who could ask for a better son? All talent and charm with a hard side. Happy B-Day, Dad." How did your relationship with Emery differ from his relationship with Andrew?
I don't think a son necessarily decides how his relationship with his father is going to be.
Yeah.
I think that a father decides how his relationship with his son is going to be. And of course, there's this communistic, ridiculous idea that equality exists anywhere, which it doesn't. And I feel that me and Andrew both had a wonderful relationship with Dad, and he did his very best to prepare us for lots of things in lots of different ways. But there's a different relationship between a man and his firstborn son and a man and his secondborn son. So I don't really know, because I don't speak to Andrew about his personal relationship with Dad. We'll speak in general about what we liked about him, what a great man he was, what we disliked about him, even in private. But we'll never discuss the individual relationship we had, one with the other. But the things I learned from Dad, always to have my brother's back, always to watch out for him, I'm not sure wasn't said to Andrew. I guess it probably was, but I don't know how he decided to arm us as firstborn and secondborn with his lessons and his knowledge. All I know is that it's worked fantastically, because results speak for themselves. So all I could say is whatever he did, it worked. So I can't say how it was different, but it probably was, because he was smart. He was a chess player. He wouldn't move his rook in the same direction of his knight. That doesn't work. He probably saw us as different pieces and armed us and instructed us to go about the world in slightly different ways. And we are different people. So you can't argue with results. I mean, if I was a overweight drug addict, I guess maybe I could have some resentment and think, oh, well, Dad must have did this with Andrew. He didn't do with me. But me and Andrew are both incredibly happy, and we're both incredibly successful. So whatever he did, it worked. Yeah. So I'm thankful for it.
You talked about communistic energy in relationships, kind of, that like nothing is equal. I couldn't really have asked Andrew about this, because I know Islam is very insistent upon treating your wives kind of equally. But theoretically, if a man were to have multiple girlfriends or multiple wives, do you think he should give equal attention to each one? Or do you think it should be kind of different distribution?
Okay, so again, I'm going to be called a misogynist. I am a man who's had multiple girlfriends, but everybody can relate, because you have multiple friends, let's say. Why do you not treat every single one of your friends exactly the same? Why? I'm asking you an answer.
Sometimes it's a length thing. Sometimes it's a loyalty thing. Sometimes you enjoy your time more with that person. Sometimes they're in different locations.
Sometimes they deserve it more. Sometimes they've earned benefits from you that others people wouldn't get.
Yeah.
And I defer the question to male relationships, because if I said that about female relationships, I'm immediately called a misogynist. But I like to talk about people in general, so I can't be soundbited by the BBC. So let's hypothetically imagine there's a young man who has lots of different girlfriends. Let's call him Christian. Christian Kate. Yeah. Why would I treat a nice, loving, kind, energy-giving, peace-giving girl the same way as I treat some smoking hot bombshell who's completely self-interested?
Yeah.
No. Different pieces on the chessboard have different purposes. And if I'm throwing a party on a boat, you invite all the smoking hot tens who probably don't deserve it, but they look good. And if you're trying to start a family, you start a family, which is a much bigger compliment than inviting a girl on a boat, by the way, with the girl who gives you peace and has good energy. So you use I'm saying the word use. You're welcome, BBC. But you use the different pieces on the chessboard for different reasons. And everybody is completely unique. I mean, you have cookie cutter pastes and certain types of people, but everybody has something special and unique about them. And if you have the power to identify that, if you have the emotional intelligence to identify that, in what universe, in fact, I'd say, how dare you treat them all equally? How dare you? Because then you're neglecting the ones who deserve your special attention.
Another quote from your dad on Twitter. When your name is Tristan Tate, the people love to hate. They can't duplicate nor even emulate. It's sad to imitate. Silence all debate. I'm curious, your mom was a dishwasher, or washed dishes, before you paid her a salary.
That was her job.
Would you have done this for your father, or do you think that would have taken away his purpose?
No, but my father would have wanted, and if I could have assisted him in any way, it would have been to further his ambitions, not to take his mission away. So the reason, and I won't bore people with the story, you can look this up, the rivalry between Emory Andrew Tate, the Emory Andrew Tate Jr. and Maurice Ashley, another great black chess grandmaster. Great player. Not taking anything away from him. But the famous chess rivalry of who's going to be the first black grandmaster was won by Maurice Ashley, down to finance. The Jamaican government, because he was half Jamaican, sponsored him to fly to every tournament he could, play in every game he could. My father's at home trying to get his job back with the military, raise his kids. He couldn't make it there. They did famously play after Maurice Ashley became the first black grandmaster. My dad smoked him. So I would argue that my dad was the best black chess master that ever lived. I would say that. However, money is power and money is energy, as I said to you earlier. And money affects the real world in lots of ways. And the Jamaican government sponsoring Maurice Ashley gave him the ability to go out there and be the first black chess grandmaster. If my father needed anything from me today, so how old would he be? In his mid-60s today. If he needed anything from me today, I would like to team up with him to help further his mission. I'd make sure he's in Moscow at the great tournaments. I'd make sure he's in DC. I'd make sure he's in Cuba or Sao Paulo or wherever these tournaments were, so he could further his mission and he'd have the support of his sons on his individual conquest and his individual journey. I wouldn't take it away and say, Dad, don't play chess anymore. You don't have to. Here's some free money.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be what I did. So it would be a very different approach if he asked for my help at all.
Tristan is unleashed upon the world. Love him or hate him, he probably don't care. We kind of talked earlier about your carefree nature. You don't give a fuck.
No.
But given your carefree nature, Tristan, what's the worst financial decision you've ever made?
The worst financial decision I've ever made. Andrew and I had joint incomes most of our life. All the money would go in one pot. We'd use it for whatever we needed to do. And one time after a particularly successful day at the casino, a few weeks later, we realized we needed some money. We had about £20,000 left and we needed to pay off this investment we'd made in Thailand, of all places. And I said to Andrew, you know what? Fuck it, just go to the casino and try and double it. And he came back broke. So me thumbs-upping that decision was probably the worst financial decision we've ever made because people shit on us today, people who don't understand things. And in fact, I'll go deeper here. I used to work as a nightclub security guard. I used to drive a broken down car. I used to sleep in one room on a mattress on the floor. And I used to work for 100 British pounds a day at this nightclub in London. It's now long since closed down. And I'd see people spending $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on champagne. And I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, that's a years of money to me. And he's buying it on drinks. Not even drinking and pouring it out into the bucket and stuff. And I thought, these people are stupid. They're not stupid. I was stupid. Because what you have to understand is when I would take my £100 from my day's work and go out with Mark or Peter or any of my old friends and spend £100 in the pub, that's the equivalent of that millionaire spending 10 million in that nightclub. For me to take my £100 and have the time of my life for £1 would have been a great investment. But I didn't understand the difference between the ultra rich because I'd never tasted it. I'd never even seen it before I started working at the nightclub. So now people shit on me for making quote unquote stupid financial decisions. You know, Andrew just recently bought me a gift for my birthday. I say bought me a gift. I mean, we have joint incomes, but he went, you know, Tristan, yeah, I'll thumbs up that. It was a $2.1 million Aston Martin DB5, a car from 1963 in almost mint condition. And people will look at me and be like, oh, you're going to drive that, put a bunch of miles on it? You're going to lose $1 million. You're stupid. I'm not stupid. You're stupid because you can't buy one. Oh, you bought a car for $4 million. Pfft, it's going to be worth $2 million soon. I'm investing my money in this. You don't have any money. Stop telling me I'm stupid because you don't understand how little this is to me. And it's a mistake that I made as a younger person. So when people say it to me online, I'm like, yeah, I get why you think that because I can look back on myself as a younger, more stupid person. And I understand why you're barking up at me, telling me that this was stupid or that was stupid, or again, the $20,000 in champagne, which I used to do, is stupid. These aren't bad financial decisions. The bad financial decision would be to not work as hard as I do so I could never do this stuff in the first place. That's the poor financial decision. And again, you think that my mother doesn't eat. You think that my daughter doesn't have food. You think that I don't, have everything I need. Well, if I had $1 million, I wouldn't buy a car. I'd invest it in this. I've got much more than that. Invested in better things than you're suggesting. So now they look at me as a man who makes poor financial decisions. But the true poor financial decisions are when I had £200 spending £150 down the pub. That was much more stupid than anything I do today. So yeah, telling Andrew he could gamble all of our money, that's probably the worst because that was all of our money. If I said Andrew, go to the casino now and gamble $500,000, and he went to the casino and had a good time gambling and lost it, I wouldn't give a shit.
That's worth it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe not worth it, but it wouldn't be a huge cataclysmic error that would haunt me in any way. It's just something that you do sometimes.
What's something you learned recently that you should have learned long ago?
Keep longer passwords on your phones. I guess that's it. Should have known that long ago. All of my WhatsApp conversations I've ever said, nothing's weird, nothing's illegal, but they're all put out there to the world. I'm like, why didn't I just have a 26 letter and number alphanumerical password on my phone? Why did I have 4 numbers? Because I was dumb. I mean, it could be something as small as that can save you a lot of time and hurt and heartache and effort, you know, and public, I guess, embarrassment. I'm not embarrassed about anything I said. They come up to me. Did you call your ex-girlfriend your slave? It says here that she's a bitch and she's your slave. Yeah, I said that. She's not mad. She didn't accuse me of anything wrong. Was she actually a slave? Is that evidence I own slaves? Just shut up. But yeah, my dirty laundry's out there. I'm just lucky that my dirty laundry is still extremely clean compared to most people. But yeah, that's a good lesson for young people. Complicated password on your phone.
That's a good one. On business, can you tell me a little bit more about how the people who operate your companies, I know you and Andrew are the face of your companies, how they're running them? The casinos you run, like what are the hiring practices? What are the operational?
The casinos are closed down. So that's good information, but the casinos are long since closed. And Andrew, as a Muslim, cannot make money from gambling. So we no longer run casinos. We've always had the same approach. We like competence up to a point, but trustworthiness and friendship, I guess, above other things, is more important to me. If I had a cameraman who was 9 out of 10, would I fire him for somebody who would take half the salary, who was 10 out of 10, if I didn't personally like the guy or personally trust the guy? The answer is no. So my hiring and firing practices are based on competence, work ethic. You can't be lazy because I'm not lazy. If I'm online, you better be online. But it's also anyone that's close to me. There has to have at least an essence of, as I said, mine and my brother's true, loyal, masculine friendship relationship as part of that. Otherwise, if I don't like you or trust you, I'll just hire someone else who's better or cheaper who I don't like and trust. You know, I'm happy to pay huge salaries. I'm happy to give massive Christmas bonuses and, you know, treat everyone who works for me extremely well, but only if I trust them. So I feel like that's a very smart hiring practice, because you could have the best accountant in the world and you could wake up one day and all your money could be missing. Legally. Why? Because he's the best accountant in the world. Where if he's one of the best accountants in the world and you trust him, then you know your money's safe. So that's something that a lot of people don't take into account. Well, look at this guy's CV. What's his relationship with his wife like? Will his wife start screaming at him, oh, those guys make all that money, you should be taking some? Like, what's his dynamic with his friends like? Does he have any close male friends? What's he like to hang around with? Ever had a beer with the guy? Fuck his CV. That's very important. A lot of people overlook that and they end up getting screwed. Well, I had this business partner who screwed me over. Your business partner. And you have one business. So your entire financial future, you decided to enter into an agreement with a guy who snaked you. Cool. I feel sorry for you a bit, but that's a skill issue on your part as well. That's a fuck up on your part. Just as much as it is him being a snake. Why the fuck did you shake the dude's hand? Why did you enter this agreement with him? I don't feel sorry for you.
What are some things you do to vet out people? Is there a lot of in-person hiring for special roles?
Yeah. I have, again, it's a chain of command. So I have people who work for me. I'm not going to say any names because I'm being investigated. I have people who work for me directly and then people who work for them and then people who work for them. But my hiring practices are passed down the chain. So, you know, you get a few idiots who work for someone who works for me, who works for someone who works for someone who works for someone who works for me. You have a few idiots who've tried to go loud saying, hey, I used to work for the Tate brothers. Motherfucker, I've never met you. So I don't care what you say, you know? And it gets diluted as you pass the baton down the chain. But I try to emphasize that as much as possible. And when people say, oh, well, this guy who works for me, he was late for work. He's been not showing up. I'm like, why the fuck are you tolerating it? I try to hold people to the same standards I would hold myself to and encourage them to do the same. And a tight-knit family of people who are 7 out of 10 competent, then the same size team of people who are 10 out of 10 competent, who are all out for themselves, who don't trust one another. I know what business I'd invest in.
What contributions do you make in your business versus Andrew? Like, what's kind of the split? Are there certain things he's better at that takes lead on? Certain things you're better at?
Over the years, we've run all sorts of different businesses and done all sorts of different things. But the consistent divider, because we've taken different roles in these various companies, people always shit on Andrew, especially the Muslim community and other people. They shit on Andrew like, oh, you used to run this webcam streaming studio. Basically, I used to run that, you know? And it was a business that me and Andrew owned. But I was doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. So I'll take all the heavy blame if you want to point fingers at people. Plus, it was a wonderful business. Don't regret it. Fuck you. So, but the division of labor has always been split. But Andrew's a lot more efficient when he's not talking. It's better that Andrew spends 4 hours on his laptop. And when we have staff and business partners and people need to make deals with in town, I spend 4 hours showing them a good time, vetting them, listening to them. You know, I'm more of the people person in our business, and he's more if we're both the face, I'm the skin and he's the muscles and the grizzly shit underneath. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. I would have expected the opposite, but that kind of
Because
makes
Andrew's
sense.
a lot more vocal when we speak
Yeah.
online. Yes. So it's very easy to think that Andrew's the more vocal, more talkative person. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
People ask me all the time. They come to my house once or twice. I'm like, I don't think your brother likes me. Like, why? Well, he doesn't talk. Yeah, he's on his phone. He's having more conversations than we're having.
Yeah.
Just trust me, he's fucking busy. That's a point that's raised to me all the time. So yeah, I'm more of the people person, I guess. That's where I'm important. A lot less of Andrew's time is wasted because of me being there.
Something you often say is the suit doesn't make the man makes the suit. Now, assuming you're an in-shape guy in his 20s, what fashion advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
See, I didn't dress well when I was young because I had no money. The best fashion advice is be in shape and have enough money to buy nice stuff.
Yeah.
It's the best fashion advice. But again, it's different on different people. You have a much lighter skin tone than me. You probably go slightly pink if you're in the sun, I can imagine. If you wore this jacket, you'd look washed out. It wouldn't
Yeah.
work. Or this shirt, it wouldn't work on you. And there's always people who will criticize the way you dress. So people who wear baseball jerseys and backwards baseball hats say to me, why are you wearing suits? It's not the 1940s. I'm like, well, this isn't the movie Boys in the Hood either. Why are you wearing a basketball jersey? You look like a prick. Yeah. I can be taken seriously with the places I go. So always try to dress in a way that has you taken seriously. And yes, there are different styles for different countries and different ways to dress. And not everyone needs to dress like me. Not everyone needs to go to my tailor and get suits made for my guy. But certainly being in shape is the cornerstone of all fashion. And then just dressing in a way that you're going to get the respect you deserve. I understand fully that in LA, there are communities where if you have the new Nike special editions on, that it's going to open some doors for you at that mansion party where everyone's around. Oh, wow. Yeah, you got the new Nike. I don't know anything about Nike. I don't know anything about them. Not interested in having sneakers. I don't want to own them. However, dress in a way that has other people know that you're a man worthy of respect. And that's not just how much money you spend. It's just how well you put the look together for you, because everyone's different.
Do you like Andrew's fashion?
Yes, it suits Andrew extremely well. Andrew will never wear a shirt with a collar or a tie. I wear ties, bow ties, cravats, shirts with collars. We dress very differently. I like Andrew's fashion. When Andrew walks into a room, dressed however he's dressed, people take him extremely seriously. If he wore a baggy t-shirt and shorts and Crocs, people wouldn't. So I like Andrew's fashion because it works for him, and me and him have very different looks. I've been told many times that Andrew dresses like an Albanian drug dealer and I dress like a Colombian drug dealer. And I smile at that analogy, and it's kind of true.
Yeah.
But it's two very different styles, but they suit our personality types even.
Definitely. Yeah.
So
That's interesting.
yeah.
What are 5 clothing brands every 20-year-old should know about?
It massively depends on who you are. I'll take myself in my 20s. I have these huge legs that I've always had from my kickboxing career and from being mixed race, I guess, from being half black. So people will be like, if I wanted to dress well in a nice pair of jeans, Prada, can't do. Dolce & Gabbana, can't do. Fendi, can't do. Anything Italian is made for small, skinny Italian dudes. I couldn't do them, ever. So the brand doesn't matter if I can't wear it. For me, if you're a big built tall dude, Hugo Boss is a go-to for me, because Hugo Boss clothes will fit men like me or you can buy a very nice Hugo Boss suit for less than $1,000 in a lot of cases, with a shirt, with a tie, with a pocket square, and you can dress very well. So it all depends on the individual. I can't give advice because certain things work well for other people.
What are the quiet luxury brands that only the ultra rich know about?
The quiet luxury brands. I feel like the internet's destroyed that. I feel like if you were to see a man 12 years ago with a Richard Mille, an RM watch on his wrist, those who are in the know would be like, okay, I know that's 5 times the price of the Rolex. But I feel like the internet has destroyed the idea of quiet luxury brands because toxic, low-life culture can destroy a classy and reputable brand very quick. And the internet has helped to accelerate that. So nothing is a secret. If you want to get really nerdy, it gets into materials when you're tailoring. So people know my tailor, it's world famous. But it's not just the tailor, it's the fact that the fabric is Loro Piana. You may have heard of their clothes, but they're also a fabric maker who supply fabrics to the best tailoring houses in the world. And I'll occasionally meet a guy who says, is that, I mean, who's your tailor? And I'll tell him who it is. He goes, is that Loro Piana, though, the fabric? And I'm like, okay, this guy knows his shit. So there is that world that still exists to the people with a lot of money. But, I mean, let me give you an example. If I were to say Hennessy to you nowadays, you imagine Lil Jon and Usher jumping around a club, pouring bottles out on big booty strippers, yeah? Well, Hennessy is an exceptionally well-made French cognac that the aristocracy and the important people of the world, and the people who would wear suits and cravats and bow ties and stuff, have been drinking for hundreds of years. And now you imagine, dumb rappers pouring out on strippers' buttholes. Why? The secret's out. So as the world gets more globalized and everybody gets access to this information, I feel like that's going to disappear. I really do. But then there are those things that are just so exceptionally, ridiculously rare and expensive that I've got a Bugatti. I don't care how classless you try to make them because one idiot may own them. You can't make a $5 million vehicle classless because only the people with, I'd say I'm new money, but only kind of old money people will ever invest in something like that. My Aston Martin DB5, I'm not sure if you even know what they look like. It's a 1963 classic car. That's very, very special, but that's not new. People know what they are. They've been in movies. The car's older than my mum is. But I feel like that speaks much more than, I have this particular type of Swiss watch that you've never heard of, It's the old stuff that used to be super exclusive that can now come back.
Tristan, what seems like snake oil but is actually effective?
Nicotine. Bad PR. Yes, it causes cancer. Yes, cigars are bad for you. But nicotine is a wonder drug. Nicotine and caffeine. The way that people drink too much Starbucks get fat. Starbucks, of course, is an evil corporation in a lot of people's eyes, and I'm happy to boycott them myself. But yeah, nicotine and caffeine, I feel like the mainstream media tell you the most abject bullshit. Yes, sure, smoking's not good for you. I'm saying nicotine as a drug itself. The mainstream media tells you not to eat meat and fish because the hot sun's going to get too hot if you do. I feel like all the things that the mainstream media warns you against, don't be afraid of. I mean, there's lots of snake oil around, which I think is absolute bullshit. Young people being like, I'm going to the jungle to take ayahuasca. Well, you're retarded. One, because the society they're not smarter than us, this secret society of jungle people. They're in fact a Stone Age civilization. Oh, this people from the Stone Age want you to take this. Okay, well, there's lots of things that have a lot of hype that are obvious snake oil. But yeah, the answers are the boring answers. Exercise, red meat, nicotine, caffeine. These are the things that can make you sharp, more focused, in some cases stronger, healthier. And the media shits on all of them. So be careful for snake oil, but it's the staple things that we all know are good for us.
Is there anything material that makes you more confident?
Forgetting the aspect that Will Smith's a loser, let's take that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, where, have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Well, there's a scene where he's caught in this bullshit situation. He shows up at this job interview wearing the clothes he was painting his house in, no fault of his own. And he performs, he gets the job anyway. I feel like there are most circumstances, even if you were to take away the fact that I'm a public face and people know who I am, where I could perform regardless of material things. I don't need a nice watch on my wrist. I don't need a nice suit. I don't need to turn up in a nice car. I feel like I would somehow pull it off anyway, because I used to. I didn't get here riding in a limousine. I got here with one shirt and one suit jacket that I have to iron before every single meeting. That's how I got here. But it certainly helps. I do like nice suits. I do like arriving in nice cars. I mean, they are advantages. And it just means that you have to do less work. It's easier to get the contract signed. It's easier to build the connection, to build the bridge, get the handshake, make the deal. It's easier, but don't rely on it. Don't think, if only I had a watch, an AP, people would take me seriously if I went to this meeting. Don't rely on it. Rely on you and yourself. And your speaking voice is a very important one, which we can all work on. Even myself, I try to work on it to this day. You watched famously the podcast I did with Billy Redhorse. I do not speak as well in that podcast as I do now because I've tried to get better at it. And I'll watch this back and think, I stuttered there, I fucked up there. So your speaking voice is, I guess, your number one weapon above everything else material. It's immaterial in a way, but it's material in a way because you can make it better and you can work on it. Your speaking voice can get you very far in life. There's a reason I don't speak like the people who are from my hometown, because my father hated, I guess specifically Black Americans speaking in a stupid way. Yeah, man. Like my dad hated that and would start fights on my cousins literally and threaten to punch them for speaking in that manner. And me moving to England, I'm an American who lived in England, but I didn't live anywhere in my whole life where anyone is particularly well spoken. The town I live in England, they're known for having a terrible accent and speaking very poor English. The reason I speak the way I speak is because I've held myself to a high standard, not because I'm trying to pretend something that I'm not, because this is now my everyday speaking voice. And I watch myself back on even that reality TV show I did when I was 23. My accent's different. I speak better now. And that's self-analysis. It's not hanging around different people. So that's what I would invest in and work on for every single young man, because that's what will really make a difference, more so than anything material.
I agree 100% about that.
And you're a podcast host.
Yeah.
So you get
Speaking voice is very important. So this is a segment called This or That. You choose an option. You don't have to say why. Whiskey or cognac?
Whiskey.
Sparkling or still?
Sparkling.
Steak or sushi?
Steak.
Really? Reading or boxing?
Boxing. I would give up reading for boxing. No one cares how much you know when someone's trying to kill your family, Can't talk your way out of it.
Aston Martin or Lada 1500?
I've got to go Aston Martin.
Really?
I've got to go.
Yeah.
The Lada I love it, and I've fallen in love with it in the way that you fall in love with an ugly three-legged dog. It's a terrible dog, but you just love it.
Yeah.
Whereas, an Aston Martin is a perfectly trained German Shepherd. And if you had to choose one or the other, I guess I'd go with Aston Martin. Now I've got my old Aston Martin, which is 13 years older than my Lada. I'm going to fall in love with Aston even more. Aston's the number one car brand to me. If you had asked me Lada or Lamborghini, I would have chosen Lada.
Thailand or Dubai?
Dubai.
Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Bitcoin.
US or UK?
They both suck for so many different reasons. But right now, US. I have less chance of being pulled up on some hate speech charges and going to jail for no reason if I'm in the US. And the US Constitution was written by good men, and they do have the freedom of speech in there. So I would choose the United States because of that.
Andrew said UK. Very funny. Europe or Asia?
Europe is the king of continents. Nowhere compares.
English or Spanish?
Oh, English. Fuck Spanish. I'm not interested in Spanish. Why would I be interested in Spanish? Every time you say that English is the most important language in the world, there's always some idiot be like, but loads of people speak Spanish. No. Loads of third world favela living drug dealers speak Spanish. Do you want to go to Colombia and use your Spanish to get around? Everyone important speaks English absolutely everywhere. And if you go to where you need to speak to important people, China, Moscow, there's always a level of English where you can get by with. Spanish isn't the same.
Mhm.
People look at the number of people who speak these languages and are like, well, Spanish is almost as good as English. No, I don't want to walk around the drug dens of the cartel in eastern Mexico. I'm not interested in doing that. So I don't care how many of them speak this language. It's simply not as important, and Spanish can go fuck itself. English all the way.
The first person to move is gay. I'm just going to lose on this one. Damn. Okay.
I
Tristan
was
wins.
willing to let the cigarette burn.
I picked a good point to do it. Putin or Trump?
As a politician, is that what you're
The
asking?
person you'd want to lead your country.
Well, which country?
I guess if you lived in the US or the UK.
Putin is a better politician than Trump. As a politician, Putin. And I absolutely love Donald Trump. I'm taking nothing away from him, and him winning will be the most important cultural shift the West has experienced in a very long time. But Putin's the president of Russia, and he is the president of Russia. Donald Trump can become the president of America, and he has to fight thousands of internal powers struggling to undermine his influence, and Putin doesn't have to do that. So Putin is a better and more effective politician for that reason. And I love Donald Trump.
Think really hard about this one. Trump or Kamala?
Well, a mixed race. Is Kamala black this week or is she Indian this week?
I
I
both.
forget. I think she's both black and Indian this week because she's 0% African American because the black comes from Jamaica. So that's foreign. Come on. Donald Trump, obviously. I think I'd rather Kamala or basically anybody. Kamala and a duck. Give me the duck and let the deep state just pull the strings, you know? It's basically what we got now with Biden. Fuck, I'm definitely going to jail, aren't I? But yeah, no, Kamala is absolutely useless. I cannot think of a single more useless politician. And I'm going to be watching this back when she's president of the United States after they rig it somehow, thinking, what the fuck did I say that for? I'll move to Dubai. Yeah, but I don't know. Donald Trump is the last hope for the future of what America was designed to be. And if he doesn't win, it's going to have a very hard time staying great. And I'm not trying to buy into the Make America Great Again slogan, but yeah, he's completely right. Only Donald Trump can fix things.
Kamala or Biden?
Biden is less scary. Biden's a dope. Biden doesn't know what's going on. And the people who care about the big money interests and the people who are currently destroying America still would draw a line at destroying the world. They're marching very close to World War III and they're poking the wrong bears. But I feel like they'd think, let's not destroy the whole world because that would suck, you know? They've got families, important families with long lineages. They want America to be in control because the people behind Biden control certainly the banks. They control the big money. They want their great-grandchildren to still control the banks and control the puppet presidents then. I think Kamala Harris is a wild card with nothing to lose. And I think that in a fit of trying to act tough or to prove herself, she could march humanity into the single greatest global catastrophe that's ever happened. And we're this fucking close right now. No one understands how close we are, but we're this close. So no, I don't need some maverick with something to prove or some person who, you know, no one really cares about and everybody doubts to sit in behind that Oval Office with that big red button. Think, oh, I'm tough on Russia and fucking murder all of our children. No, Biden any day of the week.
So the 2024 US election is coming up. What outcomes are possible and which outcomes do you prefer?
Well, if they count the votes fairly, Donald Trump should win. If they cheat, Kamala will win. So I put it about 50-50. I put it at about 50-50. I was like, oh, Trump's definitely going to win. I'm like, oh, that's because you're talking to voters and asking who they're going to vote for. You think that matters? One of the reasons we were canceled is for questioning the integrity of the previous election. Joe Biden couldn't fill a room. I understand why Obama was popular. I voted for him the first time he got into office. Young and stupid. Believed in what politicians said. As an older man, I think that he was a terrible president. And I certainly understand, though, the hype behind him. Arguably the most well-spoken and charismatic speech giver of any politician I've ever seen in my 36 years. I understand why millions of people gathered for his inauguration. And you're telling me Joe Biden got 5 million more votes than he did? I simply don't believe you. If that makes me a criminal, if that makes me an election denier, whatever they want to call me, or a conspiracy theorist, fine. I simply don't believe you. I've been around, and I don't believe that Joe Biden is more popular than Barack Obama and got more votes than Barack Obama. The way he mobilized the black vote, 99.9% of all black people voted for him immediately, people who would never normally vote in elections, a lot of them. Yeah. So they're going to rig it or they're not. But there's no way Joe Biden, I think they rigged the last election, in my opinion. You're going to lose.
Really smart argument to do Obama versus Biden votes.
Yeah.
To kind of paint the picture of it.
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine him being that much more popular? I
make
can't
much
remember. And I was a sentient adult at the time when he was running against Donald Trump. And from the time he was vice president, all these years, to the time he was running against Donald Trump, I don't even recall a single thing he said. I can remember Obama's speeches off the top of my head right now. I don't recall a single word Joe Biden has ever said. And there's also something very sinister you have to understand about people who've been in power for a long time telling you what they'll fix if they have more power. Sorry, so you were the vice president for 8 fucking years. Donald Trump's president for a couple years, and you come along talking about how we need to fix America and everything's fucked. Well, sorry, who was in the fucking driving seat just before Trump? Forever. You and your mate. Right now, Kamala Harris is doing exactly the same thing to all of you, every American voter. When I become president, I'm going to do this and change this, and I'm going to fix America's infrastructure. I'm going to... Bitch, you're the vice president right now and have been for 3.5 years. Why are you making promises instead of saying, look, it's all fixed. I've done it. I'm the second most powerful person in this country. Look, it's already done. Why are you making campaign promises? What, and then we expect that when you get 1 seat higher, it's all going to be better? No. Fuck that. I don't believe them.
What would happen if Trump was killed?
Well, unfortunately, it's a conversation we actually have to have because someone did actually shoot him, which is terrifying. I don't know. I just know I wouldn't want to be in the United States. What I think is we now have no choice in our election. Oh, there'd be somebody in the Republican seat. Somebody, some guy. Because I think the only other guy who I like, who I would have trusted to be some sort of revolutionary president would be Vivek, and I don't think they would have given it to him. He didn't get enough votes in the primaries. I don't think he would be in the seat.
What did you like about Vivek?
I like the fact that he is willing to tell us uncomfortable truths. I think that when people are willing to say uncomfortable truths to the people they're supposed to govern, I can at least respect that. As a man, you're telling me something that I don't want to hear. Well, good. Well, you should be the politicians, the politicians who stray away from the mainstream narratives on some issues. In England, there was the Russia-Ukraine thing. Everyone's like, oh, Vladimir Putin's unprovoked war of aggression. Unprovoked, yeah. And then some politicians were brave enough to sit down and goes, no, he was absolutely provoked and this was stupid. And England or the United States would not have stood for what we've been doing to that country. And America would have invaded Mexico in a second if we were trying to put Russian weapons there. So the uncomfortable truths, I guess, help me gravitate towards a politician much more. When Vivek said, he was interviewed and said, yeah, there's a Christian nation founded on Judeo-Christian principles, blah, 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 but you're a Hindu. He went, yes, I am. Yes, I am. But here are the principles of that the country was founded on, and I agree with every single one of them, and my Hindu faith is never going to interject with policy making, but I am actually a Hindu. He didn't lie, like probably Obama, who was an atheist throughout all of his college years and found God before he ran for politics, even though he was secretly having gay sex with a bunch of dudes. That was exposed by Tucker Carlson. This isn't an exclusive to your show, so, by all means, don't attack him for it. However, do I believe that Obama was a Christian man? No, I don't. I still don't. So I like that Vivek was happy to stand up and tell us uncomfortable truths and say things that a lot of people in the United States didn't want to hear. The Bible Belt, when he's standing up saying, I am a Hindu, sure, that puts a lot of people off. But he stands by what he says and who he is and what he means. So I liked him. So if Trump had been assassinated, we'd be in some position where we'd have some shill for the Republicans, some shill for the Democrats, all funded by the same people. And I think the world will just go into this bullshit election, and they use the media to misdirect people into thinking the election's important again. What I don't think is a lot of the tough talkers who say, yeah, it would be civil war. I don't think there would be civil war. I think that people would tweet a lot, they'd post a lot, they'd act outraged, but no one would actually lock and load. And what it takes for, and I'm not giving advice on insurrections, by the way,
Yeah.
but what it takes for a populace to successfully overthrow a government, in 99.9% of cases, if you understand history, right here in Romania, 1989, what it takes is for the military and the people in charge of the military to officially change sides. Once that happens, you have your control. So when the military in 1989 in Romania officially changed sides to the side of the people and disavowed Nicolae Ceausescu, the communist dictator, the overthrow was complete. I don't think that unless there were any military leaders in the United States brave enough to sit there secretly thinking, because they're in charge of the military, if they rig the election, I'm going to order the military to stand down and to go and seize the White House and let Donald Trump in. Unless the military are happy to help, no civil war is ever going to be won. So I think America would just be fucked. I think it would be as fucked with whatever outcome as what we're looking at now, where it's 50% fucked if we have the wrong outcome. So just all hope would have been taken away from very many people, and America would have spiraled further and further into this shithole where people can't afford groceries. Isn't it scary that you've had some success online? I'm very proud of you, but if you are a man your age and you have just finished a college education and you go to get a normal job in what we know is the marketplace of the workplace, the labor market, that you have basically a 0% chance of ever owning a house outright during your lifetime.
There's no middle class anymore.
Ever. Anymore. It's gone. And Trump will bring it back. So, yeah, America will be fucked if they kill him, and it will be fucked if Kamala wins. It will be fucked in any single scenario where he doesn't end up the president of the United States again.
What would it take to save American politics?
A lot more than Trump can do. Trump would have to essentially train and groom someone with the same moral backbone as him to be the next president. It would take 16 years of good leadership to completely save America. And Eric and Donald Trump Jr. are relatively strong, I guess, candidates for this. If they got
You're good friends with them. Do they plan on running?
I'm not good friends. I'm not good friends. And I always distance myself from anybody because they get a lot of smoke for knowing me. I know them a bit. I talk to them. I wouldn't say good friends. But I don't know of any plans of anyone running for president. It's not the kind of information that they'd share with me. But I think it would take Donald Trump giving Don Jr. a high-level administration job, let him learn the culture of DC, let him learn the culture of American politics, and to line him up to be the next president, because to completely save America, I would think that we'd have to go back to some of the policies that John F. K. was trying to enact when a lone crazy person shot him. You know, changing the way that the Federal Reserve Bank works, for example, changing the way that the American monetary system works, changing the way that the military-industrial complex works, changing the way that politicians can be lobbied and paid for through various super PACs before they get in, so they have special interests. The word special interest, it shouldn't exist. Their interest should be you and your life and how good is your life going as the man who voted for them. Special interests? To who? Some pharmaceutical company that you have no stake in? Good, so they'll fill you full of poisonous injections to appease their friends. There should be no special interests. And that would be a fight that would be multi-generational in terms of presidencies. That would take 12 to 16 years. So I hope Trump wins. I hope he does a good enough job to keep the voters voting for him, half the price of gas, lower the price of groceries, so that he can then let his apprentice, whoever that may be, from within the political establishment or from outside, take his endorsement and run with the baton. That's what it would take. It won't take Donald Trump. He simply doesn't have enough time.
What are your 3 favorite and least favorite countries?
I mean, that's a very difficult question to travel to politically, ideologically.
I guess overall. Yeah.
Overall, yeah, that's still very hard. I'm a big fan of what England used to be. England is the greatest country that has ever existed. It's now failed. It's fucked up. It's like in the last year of Muhammad Ali's life, when you saw him shaking and he couldn't put a sentence together. That's what England is now. However, Muhammad Ali is still known as the greatest boxer, the greatest heavyweight boxer there's ever been. I feel like that's how I look at England, but I will always have a special place in my heart for England. It's a tiny little island in a cold, rainy part of the ocean just north of the European continent that conquered and civilized the entire world. And I've had this discussion with somebody who was Russian. And I've had this discussion with somebody who was Chinese. And I've had this discussion with people who are Brazilian. And they're arguing with me, being, oh, well, actually, not quite. And I always say the same thing. I say, well, what language are we having this argument in? Why do you know our language? How come the world's greatest superpower, you all think you're Americans, you don't have your own language. You speak that language of that tiny little island of psychopaths who got on these little wooden boats and went and conquered everybody. It's the greatest nation that there's ever been. And I will always love England for that, even though now I think it's beyond the point of no return. So I like England. I like Ireland a lot. I'm quarter Irish. The fighting spirit of these people is incomparable with a lot of places in the world. Even if you look at the civil unrest that's happening right now, Irish people are standing up against things like unchecked mass migration in a way that no other European state has done. But I like lots of countries. I like
Three least favorite?
Three least favorite. I don't hate anybody from any country. I don't have any hate in my heart. I will never say, so you're an American, yes? America have committed atrocious war crimes in my lifetime. They killed 1 million people in Iraq because some Saudi people allegedly hijacked some planes and threw them into the World Trade Center. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with that. He said he had weapons of mass destruction. He didn't. It was all built on lies, and they murdered 1 million people, wiped off the face of the planet. These people will never have families, will never know their names. America has committed atrocious war crimes, but I'm an American and you're an American, and I would never say I hate you because of what your country has done. So I'm saying that in preface because I am going to say that I don't like the country of Israel because of their politics. Again, I have friends from Israel. I have men who work for me from Israel. I have Israeli acquaintances. I've had an Israeli ex-girlfriend before in the past. I want ex-girlfriend. We hooked up a bit. So I don't have any personal disdain from anybody from these countries. But the actions of their leaders and the actions of their countries, I can't stand the state of Israel. And if we're going to take actions of their countries and actions of their leaders, I'll put England in the country I hates list because I think they've thrown away the greatest thing that's ever been here on earth, which was the British Empire. So I can hate England in the same way I hate the Israeli government. But I have no personal disdain for anyone. Another country I really dislike, let me see who I can upset. I really dislike...
I'm sure Canada's in there.
No, because again, I just hate Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
And I could say like, well, Romania is trying to put rich foreigners in jail instead of concentrating on all of its problems. But the Romanian people hate their own government. They don't need me to say that. Yeah, so I don't hold any personal disdain for anyone. There's just certain governments I really dislike. The British government, even though England's my favorite country, the Israeli government I super dislike. And I think I'd leave it at that. I have no real beef with anyone else.
Who is the greatest emperor? Alexander the Great, Napoleon, or Genghis Khan?
Well, they were all revolutionaries in their own way, which is very important to understand. So they're impossible to measure one against each other. I would have to say Napoleon, though, for the reason that he holds an accolade that Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great don't. So Alexander the Great existed in a time which lasted most of human civilization, most of human warfare, the age of sword and spear warfare. And he was very good with what he called the phalanx. And he came from Macedonia and conquered all the way over to India, all the way to the Himalaya mountains. He couldn't get any further. He famously cried when there was no more lands left to conquer. And like Genghis Khan, although Genghis Khan held on to his empire for much longer, it eventually crumbled after his death. Alexander the Great's empire crumbled immediately after his death. It was split into 4 by his most important generals. And Napoleon's empire again crumbled, but Napoleon is still the greatest because although Alexander the Great was very good at sword and shield warfare, Genghis Khan still existed in this era. His method of warfare was insanely insanely competitive because every single Mongol man was a built-in, ready-to-fight soldier from the get-go. You didn't have to raise an army or train anyone. They were all exceptionally good horsemen. They were all exceptionally good archers. So you could just find men, and that was your army. And you could come and go and live off the steppe, and you had 2 female horses, drink the milk from there. You didn't need food. His logistics problem was solved, and he conquered massive swathes of it. He didn't actually conquer any of Europe. Genghis Khan's sons conquered Europe. The only European kingdom Genghis Khan was ever knew existed during his lifetime was the Kingdom of Georgia. So when you hear about the Mongols getting to the gates of Vienna, that was Temujin and Kublai and the people who came after him. But I'm digressing because I get nerdy sometimes. Napoleon was the greatest because there was a very specific period of human warfare where technology was advancing very rapidly. It ended arguably in the Franco-Prussian War just before World War I. But it lasted in a period that predates Napoleon himself. And we're talking about musketry, the marching in formation, firing in unison, there's muskets and cannons and cavalry. And the reason Napoleon is the greatest is because this age of warfare is not called musketry warfare. It's not called march in formation and fire cannons warfare. It's called Napoleonic warfare. He owns the name for a period of human warfare. No one else does. All the great Caesars, all the great Christian knights who kicked the Moors out of Spain, Charlemagne, every single person was a character who played a certain role in an era of warfare. And it did change over the years, but only one man has the whole era of warfare named after him, because that's how fucking good he was. So Napoleon.
Napoleon Bonaparte once said, to understand a man, you have to know what was happening in the world when he was 20. What was going on in the world when you were 18 to 22, and how did it influence your worldview?
When I was 18 to 22, I did have a finger on global politics. Again, the internet didn't exist. Things like Twitter, X didn't exist or were very brand new when I was in my early 20s. And certainly the propaganda machine had a complete stranglehold on the information that we were taught, but it did make me start to question things. My age, 18, 19, 20, 21, it was the Middle Easterners are bad, Muslims are bad, they're all terrorists, and we're all good, you know. That was what we were taught as British and English and American people for a very long time. And my father had a lot of conversations with me about this, you know, literally explaining to me how the various people had tried to invade and conquer Afghanistan before, and everyone wants their oil and everyone wants their money, and the Afghan man just wants to be left the fuck alone and live his life. And I was like, aren't they all terrorists? My dad was like, how is a man who lives in the middle of the desert, who makes less than $5 a day, going to hurt you in England or America? He's not your enemy. This guy just wants to be left in peace. We're in his country, blowing his shit up. In fact, the only person ever to conquer Afghanistan successfully was Genghis Khan.
Oh,
but that was in a different era, of course. So my father explaining this made me watch the news when I was taught all of this garbage that the news was trying to push down our throats. And that may have been my first enlightening break out the matrix moment, you know, because what I can't understand and why I like to have a knowledge of history is this. Every single war America has been involved in since World War II, the American public were spoon-fed and told it was a great thing to do and the right thing to do. The Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Afghan War in my lifetime when you were just a baby. And then it was the Iraq War just after that. And every single time, give it 10 years. Everybody, you, everyone in this room knows that was fucking horseshit. No, we shouldn't have sent a bunch of men to die in Vietnam. It didn't. We lost anyway. One, America talked tough about its military. It doesn't have a very good record on winning anything. Oh, they went to war in Afghanistan for 20 years. Oh, here's some big explosions. Cool, the Taliban are still in charge. They're actually more in charge than they ever were because Biden left them a bunch of weapons. So they don't have a very good record of winning anything. And they also don't have a very good record of, after the fact, anyone looking back and saying, yeah, that was a smart thing to do. And now when you have lunatics like Nikki Haley being like, yeah, we need to send Americans to go fight in Ukraine. And some Americans are like, yeah, waving their Ukraine flag, Slav Ukraine. I live on the border of Ukraine. I used to run a business in Ukraine. I know Ukrainian politics better than all of these Americans. And no, young American men don't need to go die in Ukraine. I'm like, when you look at the track record of every war we've been involved in and how fucked up we now know it was, how can anyone support any American politician saying we need to go to war with anybody? In fact, there's only one notable politician who's saying I need to stop all the wars, and that's Donald Trump, the one who was just shot at. Isn't that scary?
What's the darkest part of history that you've recently discovered?
That I've recently discovered. The darkest part of history. The darkest part of history I've been diving into recently is the real history of what Western Africa was like before white people got there. And I'm speaking as a half-black man, and I know I'm going to get loads of hate from this. How bad South Africa was before white people got there, and how the slave trade worked, and how the slave trade in the United States was able to bring over so many African men, my ancestors, to that continent. And history today teaches you that evil white people went over to Western Africa, shot people and captured people and won these fights and got all these black people and put them on boats and moved them across to America. And the white man's the evilest person ever. And it's always been a narrative I've never been 100% comfortable with. And I'm not going to say everything I know here because I can talk on the subject now for 2 or 3 hours. But I would encourage people to look into what the slave trade really was and how it really happened and how it was so easy to do. And I'll give you a thought experiment. You're quite a fit, athletic young man, 23 years of age. Okay, imagine you are a British sailor. Okay, same build you are now. You've been sailing for 3 months on this little wooden ship, eating nothing but hardtack. You got scurvy, you're sick, you're malnutrition. Okay, we put you on the coast of Africa. It's 49 degrees. Okay, you're in a thick red cotton jacket, and I give you a musket, a gun, a weapon of death. And I say, okay, here we are. I want you and the 60 other men on this boat to go and catch 300 of these big black African dudes from 20 miles inland, but you're not allowed to shoot them. No, you have to get them on the boat without hurting them. Somehow. You think you could pull that off? Me, you, the people in this room? 0% chance. I know you're not allowed to say it because you're whiter than me. You're not mixed race. You can't say, oh, that doesn't make sense.
I think I have an idea of who could pull it off.
Yeah, well, exactly. All the other black people who had all these wars with each other and were waiting on the beach with all their fellow Africans saying, here, take them, give us some more guns, we'll win the next war. Easy, boom, shoot half of them, capture half of them. And the slave trade just worked like this. So when you look into how the slave trade actually functioned, that's very dark and it's very scary, especially when you understand how much they're trying today, to this point, to completely use propaganda to tell you it happened the way we were originally taught. No. Western Africa was not filled with great, amazing golden buildings and kings and stuff. And people like Mansa Musa, who was indeed the king of Timbuktu, who was arguably the richest man in history, is a great historical figure. And there are some, and Africans have their own history, and I'm not taking them away from that. But the dark, depraved way that Western Africans enslaved their own people and gave them away for tobacco, for bullshit, to Western white people is incredibly scary. I'd also tell people to look into, ever heard of the Barbary Wars?
I think so. I don't know much about
The
that.
Barbary Wars is very simple. The Barbary Wars was America's first conflict as an independent power. So America beat England. No, English people beat other English people. It was a civil war. You then called yourself something different. I'll still stand by the English on that point. But the state of America had just finished their war against the crown. The colony of America had won their war against the British crown. And their first ever war, because it wasn't a superpower back then, was with the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was the Turkish Empire, which ruled all of modern Dubai, Turkey. Their capital, I believe, was Istanbul, and all of North Africa. And these people had a slave trade. Do you know who they used to enslave?
White people.
Americans, specifically. Because if you enslaved white British people or white Spanish people, the Spanish and the British, who were very scary, who had their big navy, would come and fight with you. So they'd wait for American ships and they'd capture you, enslave white Americans. Again, very barbaric. They'd castrate every single man they got their hands on, rape all the women, use them as sex slaves, etc. And the Ottoman Empire was enslaving white Americans. And this is a very dark thing to look into, because Americans specifically are taught that slavery was something unique that happened to black people within the United States that white people perpetrated. But you don't understand that America had to build a navy and fight its first ever conflict because Thomas Jefferson was sent to London to speak with the Ottoman emissary. And he said, stop doing this to us. Stop capturing our people. He said, no, I have the right to do this if I want. What are you gonna do?
This was millions of white people, right?
Yeah, indeed. Well, I wouldn't say millions, definitely hundreds of thousands. Every American ship they could get their hands on. hands-on, and Chinese ships, and ships that they didn't think were dangerous to them. But the Americans engaged in their first ever conflict, the Barbary conflict, the Barbary Wars. Look them up. And America had to go and put a stop to another slave trade way before they put a stop to their own slave trade. And then it was the British who outlawed slavery initially. But the Barbary Wars and the transatlantic slave trade, the more you dig into it, the sicker and more evil you see today's propaganda. People in the past were sick and evil and did all sorts of fucked up and evil things. But it's the juxtaposition with today's propaganda and what really happened. That's really scary.
What topics or groups do you know not to fuck with?
I'll fuck with anyone at this point. I'll say anything I like. At this point, I don't think it matters. I mean, they can't be trying any harder to put me in jail than they already are. I mean, if we're talking like street fights and stuff, there are certain demographics that are scarier than others. But
I guess then
you mean globally?
Who's really in power?
Who's really in power? Now, I mean, everyone always asks me, oh, what about the Jewish question? Don't Jewish people control the world? And this is maybe what you're digging at and Andrew may not have alluded to. But you don't have to be a massive conspiracy theorist to know that all the founders of the Federal Reserve Bank and the current system of financial control in the United States government, all their founding members were Jews. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to know that. You do have to be a conspiracy theorist to think that your Jewish friend and neighbor is also in the group chat trying to oppress you. That's when the conspiracy gets out of control, and that's when you become, I guess, what they call as I don't use the word anti-Semite. I use the word a racist, and I obviously am no racist. But people know not to, I guess, say things like, I don't like the state of Israel and what they stand for and what they do, because it's going to upset a wider Jewish community. I'm not scared of Benjamin Netanyahu trying to kill me. He's got bigger problems than me. In Iran and in Yemen, he's got actual problems. I'm not scared of him. But when you say things like that, the normal Jewish person, and I know lots of normal Jewish people who are good people, can let their mind get triggered into thinking that you are their enemy. And I would say, no, I'm not your enemy. And I can actually bring it into another example. In exactly the same way that I, as a mixed race man, have just said that black people sold their own people into slavery. If you were to say that as a white man, you'd have black people threatening to kill you.
Yeah.
Why? Were they slaves? Did someone enslave them? Were they there? Did they see it? No. But they'll threaten to kill you because you're a white man saying the wrong thing. And what I would say is, let's all concentrate on who runs these massive power structures. A lot of them are run by Christian Americans who are in the government. Some are run by Jewish people. Lots of power structures in the world are run by Russian oligarchs and Chinese people who you won't ever find their names out. And you can hate certain power structures and you could say where the people are from without making you a man who hates the entire demographic. Does that make sense? But it certainly does infuriate people when you talk against the state of Israel or the founders of the Federal Reserve Bank, because Christian America will also jump on your back and call you an anti-Semite, which to me doesn't make any sense.
Is there any resources that we can read to kind of gain the truth about the situation of like who's in power and who makes the decisions?
None that I could say right now without getting your YouTube channel banned is the answer. But basic fucking history books, read about the life of Woodrow Wilson, who gave him money, what he signed and why, who wrote the things he signed. I could say that much, and people could do their own research. But look into that for what if you don't know. But there's lots of information readily available on the internet, actual just normal history, and you can find out what's going on.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
That no one is ever going to give a shit about you, even 1% as much as you have to give a shit about yourself. No one cares. No one cares about you if you're a man, ever. Everything is conditional. You don't get loved unconditionally. And that's a beautiful thing, because that makes you strive to create your own value as a man. And the problem that men have is we all go from a time when everyone cares about us to a time no one does. Women don't lose it until they're maybe 45 and childless. Then they'll be like, oh, what the fuck's going on? Now she understands what it's like to become a 15, 16, 17-year-old man. Because we've gone through the stage. I remember my aunts and uncles, hey, little Tristan, I remember, they all cared about me back then. Then you get to 16, 17, 18, you're out in the cold world and you're like, no one gives a fuck, do they? I can't pay my bills. I have no food. Nobody cares. Yeah, your mother and your father will care a little bit, but you have to care about them So I'd say the duty of protection is the other way around once you become an adult, and you have to care about yourself. So the best advice I can give to anyone, especially the young men who are 13, 14, 15, who, are sitting in their room playing video games and their mother's still bringing them sandwiches, if she continues to care about you that much and you lean on it, you're going to be a nobody. And if she says, okay, you're 18 now, get the fuck out of my house, you're going to be a nobody until you make something of yourself. So the best advice every young man needs to hear is nobody gives a shit about you at all until you make them give a shit. People give a shit about me and Andrew now. Why? Would you have given a shit about me if I just fucking stayed in my room playing video games from age 18 till now? No, you wouldn't know who the fuck I was.
Let's assume that you're on death row. What would your last meal be?
Wouldn't eat one. No, I'd order something so ridiculous that, because I'm thinking about the death row last meal request that I know. One guy asked for a single olive. Yeah. One guy asked for a fucking ice cream in KFC. And the only reason
John Wayne Gacy.
Yeah, and the only reason I know that is because they asked for something unique. So I'd ask for something very unique. And I'd have lots of time on death row to think about what that is. A quick fire question, I can't tell you. I don't know, maybe three cigarettes and a shot of whiskey. Something that would be memorable, because ultimately it wouldn't matter. Something that would have my name said after I had died, more than it would have been said otherwise if I just had the standard prison meal.
Who's the last person you would speak to?
Andrew, obviously.
What would you say to him?
I'd say that your success in life and how you continue to go forward and change the world was never dependent on me. You could have done it without me. You have always been Andrew Tate, and being a Tate brother is just an accessory, is just something maybe beneficial, maybe something that has helped you, but you can do this all by yourself. You're going to be fine, and look after my kids.
The last thing you'd say to your daughter or daughters?
Anything you need, Uncle Andrew's there for you. That's what I'd say.
Last question. What's the last thing you would say to the world?
I would say to all the young men out there who see me as a source of inspiration, motivation, knowledge, anyone out there, because I wouldn't address the people who can't stand me. I'd address the people who look up to me. I'd again say something similar than I said to my brother. I'd say if I exist or not, if I speak or not, if I do podcasts, if you hear my voice, it doesn't matter. You can do all of this without me as a source of motivation. Everything I've tried to say to you and everything I've tried to tell you, I've meant it because I care about not you personally, but the way that men are perceived in this world and the way men carry themselves in this world. And if you are a true fan of mine, don't get angry, don't go nuts, don't burn anything down. Don't let this become a moment in your life that spirals you down that toilet of self-destruction. You don't need me, and you can do this anyway. And best of luck.
Well, everyone, this has been the Jack Neel Podcast. This is your guest, Tristan Tate. People will obviously
It's been a pleasure.
See you on their algorithm, but where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter. Tate the Talisman is my X. Sorry, I keep dead naming X as Twitter. That's the only real place to find me. Most other accounts you'll see on any other social media platform are, run by fans. I appreciate you all who do the work. But my real opinions and who I really am and what I really say, and to really get in touch with me, I'm on X and I'm inside the real world and the war room. And you can find those and more information about them at cobratate.com.
Beautiful.